Hey guys. Here's part 4 of What If Naruto Met a Mysterious Archer During the Chunin Exams. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are paid, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 40. He is not a morning person, now is he? Tenten leaned over to Sakura when she saw Naruto crawl out of his tent and move towards the river in a manner more resembling a zombie. Actually, it depends. Sometimes he jumps up like if he is on fire, but that is if he has some kind of training ahead of him, or anything else that might keep him interested. Oh, I see. Tenten watched as Naruto approached the river, got down on all four and simply lowered his head into the water, effectively washing the sleepiness away. Yes, now I am ready for our mission. Naruto stood up with his bright smile once more present on his face and water streaming down. Man, that is like a transformation jutsu. Tenten laughed, noticing how Naruto's whole body language changed after his cold wake-up call. Asuma gave them some time to eat whatever was left from the evening, gather up their stuff, and soon the group was once more on the move. Hinata was ordered to scan the area with her Byakugan, paying special attention to the opposite side of the river. After all, technically that was enemy territory. Still, so far it was quiet. Asuma-sensei, there are remains of a wooden bridge up ahead. From what I can say, it was burned down only recently. Hinata reported. Burned bridge? Sasuke turned to the Hyuga girl. That was the feudal army. Toro explained. This river is too wide and dangerous to cross without a bridge or specialized ninja training, thus it makes an excellent natural defense line. Right. Asuma nodded. There is only one large stone bridge across this river. After destroying all other bridges, the feudal army forced the rebel forces to gather all in one place. A narrow bridge using such place as a field of battle will destroy any advantage in numbers the rebels have. Sasuke nodded, admitting that this was a very good strategy. So, the feudal army, what is it like? Naruto asked. Didn't you listen to anything in the academy? Sakura rolled her eyes. Fine, listen. The core of the army is made up of samurai, but don't mistake them with the samurai forces from the Land of Iron. What's so special about Land of Iron? Naruto asked. Not now, we have the local feudal army as our topic right now. Sakura sent Naruto an irritated glance. Anyway, as I said, the samurai are the core, but they are not nearly numerous enough for such large-scale fighting, so the feudal lord has the right to assemble the Ashigaru, basically trained militia. Oh, I get it. Naruto nodded with a grin. The way the feudal army was organized was typical for the non-shinobi military forces. They relied more on numbers than on the individual skill of any combatant, or the well-organized cooperation of small shinobi teams. Large armies was a force to be reckoned with, but such armies created serious problems with logistics. After all, feeding and moving around large groups of people was a difficult task, and the supply lines always were the most vulnerable part. For that reason, Shikamaru's mission was so important, as without stable supply lines there was little hope for the main force of the feudal army to make it in time. Asuma's team had to help the available forces buy time until the arrival of the main army. In other words, the whole campaign greatly depended on the success of the two shinobi teams. A large military camp up ahead. I see the banner of the feudal lord. Hinata reported after several hours of traveling. Those must be our allies. Everyone keep quiet, we will first have to find the commander and report to him. Asuma spoke. Whoa, big camp. Naruto said, looking at the mass of tents and simple watchtowers. It was without a doubt a military camp, considering how well it was organized, and the moment the group got closer several armed men ran up to them. All of them were armed with spears or naginatas and were wearing the typical gear of the Ashigaru soldiers, the Do armor and conical Jingesa hats. Halt, who are you? This territory is held by the forces of the feudal army of the Land of Fire. We are a team of Konoha shinobi. We were sent here to reinforce you. Asuma held up his hands in a peace gesture. The soldiers lowered their weapons, but still looked at the ninjas with suspicion. Ninjas, huh? Some of you nowhere near old enough to fight in a war. We ninjas are forced to mature early, Asuma said with a smile, while some of the genin began openly glaring at the man who doubted their skills. Yeah, I heard that ninjas are weird folk. Fine, I'll take you to see Lord Shinzi. Follow me. Don't tell me, you wanted to smack him once or twice too. Naruto looked at the young Uchiha who didn't answer, but the annoyed twitch of his eyes was all the proof Naruto needed that he was right. As the ninjas walked through the camp, they could hear whispers as the soldiers openly stared at the passing group. Whatever activity there was, it stopped as the soldiers turned to look at the ninjas. Of course, the people around began to quietly talk among themselves, but most of them were not aware that ninjas generally had much keener hearing. Leaf ninjas, I wonder. Maybe we have a chance. Kind of young. Herd ninjas are tough. All the help we can get. Pink? Seriously? I mean. Tenten fought down a laugh when she saw the only female of Team 7 go red. She wasn't sure if it was from embarrassment or anger, but most likely both. Still, it was no surprise that to the soldiers Sakura seemed as the least dangerous of the group. The girl actually had nothing threatening about her. My lord, a group of people have arrived. They claim to be leaf ninjas. The soldier peeked into the tent and after a moment motioned for the ninjas to walk in. Inside was a man with short, fuzzy beard wearing high-quality samurai armor. I am Sarutobi Asuma, and I am in charge of this ninja team. Leaf ninjas? Fine, we can use you. The man spoke in a low voice. I am not sure how useful you are, but whatever. If the feudal lord thinks I need you, then all right. I am Commander Shinzi. The man spoke in a manner that clearly said that he wasn't thrilled to have ninjas among his forces. Most likely he was willing to tolerate him, because his situation wasn't the easiest one. What are our orders, Shinzi-san? Asuma asked. It didn't seem that he cared about the commander's opinion on them. Look here. The commander motioned Asuma to approach the table and unrolled a map. The rebel forces have not arrived yet, but their vanguard has already crossed the bridge and is holding land on our side of the river. We need to crush them before the arrival of the main rebel force, as we will not be able to hold our own in a battle that will take place in the open field. What is our role? Well, if you are as good as I've been told, you will spearhead the charge. Asuma narrowed his eyes. It should be fruitful to send out someone to take out their sentries. A surprise attack will save us unnecessary casualties. As long as the task gets done. The attack is planned to begin at sunset. You may go prepare. Shinzi waved his hand dismissing the ninjas. The ninjas began settling in, while discussing the task before them. Don't get me wrong, but if I understand correctly, we are going to attack a force several hundred strong? Sasuke asked while helping Naruto to set up their tent. Yeah, that's right. Asuma nodded. But we will not just barge in. People get killed using that strategy. We should try and disorganize their defenses. Should the enemy fail to set up a stable defense, they will be quickly overwhelmed. Shino suggested. I agree with the Aburame. Toro nodded. Good, that more or less reflects my idea. Asuma nodded. We will come in quietly and strike where it hurts. Remember, no unnecessary heroics or bravado. We get in, do our jobs and stay alive. Not listen carefully, here's what I've got. The shore was held by a force of around 400 rebels. They were mostly low-rate mercenaries, but some had considerable battle experience. Either way, they have dug in, constructing a small palisade in order to hold the side of the bridge and to ensure that their army would be able to cross the river undisturbed. So far, the feudal army made no attempt to get rid of them, and the rebel forces would arrive any day now. Man, this is boring. One of the mercenaries yawned and leaned over the palisade. The place was as quiet as always, and he didn't even understand the purpose of him being here. He could be elsewhere, doing something worth his while. After all, he didn't sign up for this. HMPPF. A hand shot out, crushing the windpipe of the unfortunate mercenary, pulling him further over the palisade and not allowing him to scream. A moment later, and another hand wrapped around the neck, followed by something snapping inside, and the body went limp. It was then quickly pulled and thrown down, so that nobody would notice the body. Toro looked down and motioned to Sakura, Naruto, and Sasuke to approach. The genin immediately got to work setting up explosive tags in order to create a breach in the palisade for the feudal forces to move in through. Asuma led another group that would create a breach from another direction. This would force the rebels to spread their forces, trying to fend off an attack from two sides. Toro in the meantime pulled up his bow, aiming at the mercenary archer stationed nearby, but facing away from them. A moment later, and he fell off the palisade with an arrow in the back of his head. His died before he even realized he was hit. While the genin worked, he kept taking out lone sentries, making the rebel position as vulnerable as it could get. All right, Uchiha, give the signal. Toro again met up with the genin, who moved to the side, away from the section of the palisade they prepared to blow up. Sasuke nodded and flashed through hand seals before launching a fireball into the air. There was no missing such a signal. Immediately the feudal forces appeared from their hiding places and charged forward with a battle cry. As they covered half the ground between them and the palisade, Sakura detonated the tags. The effect was quite spectacular, as the explosion easily created a large enough breach. Moments later, another explosion came from the other side. Move, strike to kill. The ninja rushed inside. The mercenaries were only starting gathering, and some were on the ground knocked down by the blast wave. Shadow Clone Jutsu! Naruto created enough copies to engage the nearby mercenaries in bitter fighting, and even though his clones were taken out one by one, they made great distractions and usually knocked out or seriously wounded at least one or two opponents before exploding into puff of smoke. Watch your back, Dobe! Sasuke appeared, blocking a strike from a Naginata and then slicing the weapon in half. He then kicked the enemy in the chest, knocking him over and thrust the blade down into the throat. Little bastard! Sasuke looked up and saw a large man with a club, preparing to squash him, but the Sharingan allowed the Uchiha to avoid a strong, but reckless strike. He then saw how the man got several kunai into his chest, before slumping down with blood coming from his mouth. You could follow your own advice, team. Naruto scowled as he and Sasuke went fighting back to back. Shoot them! Both genin saw how a dozen rebel archers lined up, preparing to shower them in arrows, and considering the short range, dodging would be nearly impossible. Without hesitation the rebels released a volley, but to Naruto's and Sasuke's surprise they missed badly, hitting their own troops nearby. Great work, Sakura-chan! Naruto grinned when he saw his teammate standing with her hands in a seal. Her genjutsu proved quite effective when used correctly. Just kill this guy! A mercenary charged at Toro, who silenced the man by shooting an arrow through his head. The already dead body dropped not far from several others that tried attacking the archer. One tried attacking from behind, but a slash from a sword was blocked by the bow, and Toro then threw the man over his head. He never allowed him to get up as he simply stomped on the man's neck, breaking it. Fire style, fireball jutsu! Sasuke spat out a fireball and two men in front of him caught fire, the air getting filled with the disgusting scent of burning flesh. Sasuke frowned at the image, but he expected nothing else. After all, he knew what fire could do to a man. Fight me, shinobi scum! The Uchiha spun around and saw a man in samurai armor challenge him. Let's test your skills as a swordsman against that of a true warrior. HN! Sasuke took a step forward, while his opponent charged. Sasuke ducked under a slash and lashed out with a strike of his own, the blade moving in a wide arc so fast that it left an afterimage. Ha, you think? The rebel swordsman smirked, but then saw his opponent disappear in a puff of smoke. Dance of the Crescent Moon! The swordsman never said anything else as he fell over, head rolling off his shoulders, revealing Sasuke standing behind him with a neutral expression. Wind style, great breakthrough! Members of Team 7 saw how over a dozen mercenaries flew through the air, screaming from both pain and fear. Everyone alright? Asuma appeared, followed by the rest of their group. He looked around and saw that the feudal soldiers were finishing up the job, the remaining mercenaries surrendering as it was clear that otherwise they would be cut down mercilessly. From the beginning their defense was rather chaotic and was broken down into several islands of defense isolated from each other. Yeah, we are fine, Asuma-sensei. Naruto massaged his jaw as he got hit by something he couldn't remember what. Sasuke noticed he had a shallow cut below his knee, but otherwise they seemed unharmed. The fight overall was very brief, but bloody. Still, without a doubt it would have cost the feudal forces much more men if they tried taking the position without ninja support. I guess you ninjas have your uses. Shinzi appeared, being flanked by two gruff-looking samurai. He stepped over a beheaded body left by Sasuke and looked around. Judging by his perfectly clean armor, he never participated in the fighting. That wasn't necessarily a sign of cowardice. Of course, a leader charging the enemy line together with his troops was an inspiration. On the other hand, a reckless leader could easily be killed and leave his army leaderless. It was a delicate balance, and without a doubt in this particular battle his men didn't need his presence to boost their morale. Shinzi looked around once more, his eyes landing on Shino for a moment as the young Aburaim called back his bugs that came buzzing and disappeared into the sleeves of his coat. The picture sent shivers down the commander's spine. I guess you ninja earned some rest. My men will secure the area, you have no need to be here. I will send for you once the need for your skills will arise. Understood. Asuma nodded. Shinzi didn't show it, but his tone no longer was as dismissing as it was before. If anything, ninjas proved their usefulness, and Shinzi was a pragmatic commander, and he also respected power. Hell, we were great, those guys didn't know what hit them. Naruto grinned, sitting by the fire with a bowl of stew. Why yes, our attack was surprisingly effective. Hinata nodded, her cheeks getting red. She didn't know how on earth she ended up sitting next to Naruto, but somehow it happened. Surprisingly, no surprise there, we are just awesome. Ha, I liked when that palisade went boom and… Here, you are easier to tolerate when you hear, because then you do not produce nearly as much noise. Naruto found his mouth filled with a spoonful of stew courtesy of Sasuke. Hot, hot, hot! Naruto gulped down the food and began searching for his flask and eagerly pouring half of it down his throat. Oh yeah, that was better. What is the big idea, team? HN, Try to act more like a ninja. Try acting less as an ass, Naruto objected. They never stop that. Tenten leaned to Sakura, who shook her head, being somewhat quiet after the battle. You feeling all right? Yes, of course, why wouldn't I? Sakura smiled, but you didn't have to be an expert to see how fake it was. You finished? I'll take our bowl and wash them, Sakura said and quickly walked off towards a nearby creek. Tenten looked a bit puzzled. Lately, when she was talking with someone, they tended to walk off, leaving her feeling guilty, and if Toro wasn't someone who would openly discuss things, then Sakura was a different story, so Tenten decided to follow. She found the younger girl by creek scrubbing her own hands. It won't come off, I still feel it, Sakura said, not looking away from her hands. Oh. Tenten settled down next to Sakura. I myself threw my first time. I did too, when nobody was looking, Sakura admitted. It will never come off, trust me, I know. Being forced to live with this is a part of our job. I don't know what to think about it. Don't think about it, it is not healthy. If you keep thinking about it, you will have nightmares, you will feel sick and dirty. Personal experience. Yeah. Guy-sensei talked to me about it. I think that was the first time he didn't act like a clown ranting about youth all the time. Tenten smiled. So you just forget? You won't work, if you are a human, that is. You just live with it and accept it as a part of you. Not the best part. Sometimes we are guardians, sometimes we are killers. Ninjas are not innocent, our path is always a bloody one no matter what we do. That is just the world we live in. So, think you will be alright? Yeah, thanks. I guess I needed something to tell me things I already knew. Hey, you are taking it better than I did. Let's go, before your teammates get worried. I don't fancy Naruto running around looking for you and Sasuke glaring at him with that Sharingan of his. He is creepy. Sasuke-kun is not creepy. He is mysterious. In his case, same thing apparently. Tenten concluded, noticing how Sakura got back to her usual self. Chapter 41. The little town of Tanivo, despite its small size, was a strategically important location. The reason was simple. It was located at the crossroads that could be used to send supplies in nearly every part of the country. In other words, it was a key element of the local infrastructure. Since the town always had numerous caravans moving through it, then no wonder that it was filled with small hotels and taverns that offered a meal and a bed to the travelers, provided they had enough money to pay. Basically, anyone could find a place to stay. But Shikamaru's team would only have the chance to seek a place to rest after meeting the local military commander. The local feudal force set up a military camp not far from the town in order to be able to use it as the center of their supply lines. Lord Aswari is waiting for you. A man in samurai armor motioned the ninjas to step into the commander's tent. Ah, Konoha ninjas, you are most welcome, I've been expecting you. The ninjas were greeted by a rather short man in his late 50s who had a soft, pleasant smile on his face, though his eyes had a certain glow in them that betrayed the old age. This is my second in command, Ashimaru Sheijai. We've just been discussing the situation, so you arrived in quite a good time. Aswari motioned to another, much younger man standing nearby. Unlike his commander, Ashimaru greeted the ninjas with a cold glare and silence. He seemed to study them for a moment before turning back to his commander. My lord, I still say that my men are more than capable to handle these attacks that we've been dealing with. All we need is just a bit of time and... We've discussed this already, Ashimaru. Please, don't take it as any sign of mistrust towards you, but these ninjas here came under the request of the feudal lord himself, and thus we have no room to discuss this. We both swore an oath of loyalty, and we will fulfill the wishes of our lord. Yes, of course. Ashimaru nodded and took a step back. Besides, you've had plenty of time to solve the problem, but I have seen no results yet. So, I think some fresh help would do us good. So ninjas, I understand that we have much to discuss, but I prefer to know your names first. All right. Shikamaru nodded with a sigh. Since he was the highest-ranking ninja and the team leader, it was his job to introduce his teammates to the client. I am Shikamaru Nara, team leader for this mission. With me are Ino Yamanaka, Chuji Akimichi, Neji Hyuga and Kiba Inuzuka. Our team was especially formed in order to deal with this mission, as this will be a more delicate matter to handle than a mere brawl. Yes, you are absolutely right, and I am pleased to meet you all. I just hope that you will solve our current problem. We will do our best, but Lord Hokage gave us only the most basic information. I see. Well, you obviously know that our mission here is to ensure that the main feudal army gets supplies in time in order to keep moving. It is a hard job to supply thousands of men with food every day, not to mention feeding the horses, taking care of the sick and wounded, delivering messages, and so on. Let me guess, the lines are to stretch to protect adequately. Neji offered with a neutral look. You think? Not now, Ashimaru, the young ninja is after all correct. The situation made our current position quite vulnerable. The enemy is using it. They know the terrain, especially the swamps and woods to the north and east, and that means that two main roads basically go through hostile territory. What have you done to protect the supplies? Shikamaru asked. At first we tried increasing soldier escort, but that only resulted in more casualties. Then Ashimaru tried organizing false caravans, but those got through without any trouble, as if the enemy knew who to attack. Information is also a weapon, provided you know how to wield it. Shikamaru nodded. Preposterous. Only a handful of my men knew that about that plan, and I would trust them with my life. Ashimaru said. Not something I can say about any of you, ninjas. Enough. Ashimaru, this is no way to address our allies, and I don't care about what happened years ago, that is the past. Is there something we need to know? Neji tilted his head. Perhaps Shikamaru was the team leader, but Neji, being the most experienced ninja among them, had an unofficial position of Shikamaru's second in command. The Nara actually appreciated his input, as some things came only with experience. No, it does not concern you. Ashimaru scowled. Well, to a degree. My lord. Fine, but only if you start acting accordingly. These shinobi are here to help, and I expect you to provide them with everything they might need. Yes, I understand. Then we will start as soon as we settle in. It is best we stay in town, just in case. We will require the reports and maps to study in order to form a plan. Oh, and Ino will have a talk with those people you mentioned, Ashimaru-san. Talk? Well, let's say she will take a peek in their heads. No harm will be done. My men have nothing to hide, but I will not subject them to any ninja techniques just to rule out these pointless accusations. Nobody is accusing anyone of anything. Shikamaru sighed. Yet. Ashimaru, organize everything. Yes, my lord. The young warrior clearly wanted to object, but didn't dare to spear against his commander, whose position on the matter was quite clear. It was said that the mind of another was a mystery. For most that was so, but for a Yamanaka nothing was further from truth. Members of the Yamanaka family were often called mind walkers or mind readers, and often worked as interrogators or infiltrators, as they could use the body of their own enemy easily walk among their enemies without raising any suspicion. This made the Yamanakas stand out, as they operated in the field where few could offer any substantial resistance. Being the daughter of the current head of the Yamanaka family meant that Ino had access to many prized techniques, or rather would be. The jutsus used by her family require substantial knowledge of human psychology, and a great deal of mental discipline, something that Inoichi admitted his daughter currently lacking. But even if the more complex techniques were still beyond Ino, she was more than capable of diving into the mind of a person who had no ninja training. Done! Ino opened her eyes and pulled her hands away from the forehead of a gruff-looking samurai, who got up the moment she broke the jutsu. Ino found nothing that would suggest that this man, or anyone else, had something to do with the attacks. She spent half the day working, but found nothing. Chuji was sent with her just in case, and was bored out of his mind. Well? Nil. Ino sighed. I guess that Ashimaru really knows his men. Oh well, I bet Shikamaru and Neji will figure something out, or maybe Kiba will find something. Chuji shrugged. Kiba and Akamaru were looking around, hoping to pick anything using their sense of smell. There was little chance of them finding anything, but the very least it kept the young Inuzuka occupied. The hotel Shikamaru chose as their temporary base wasn't fancy, but it wasn't a rundown place either. It provided service adequate for the pay demanded, and the ninja team had a limited budget. After all, ninjas didn't need luxury beyond a roof over their heads, and even that in some cases was not a requirement. Ino though frowned in distaste as she noticed that the place wasn't cleaned very often. Anything? Shikamaru looked up once Ino and Chuji walked in. No. Hope you are happy. I've just spent half of my day looking through the minds of some brutes. You won't believe the things these guys do sometimes, especially when drunken. This seems out of place. Neji approached Shikamaru. Hey, I was talking, you know. Ino looked at Neji. What a drag. Shikamaru sighed, rubbing his face. Ino, once you said you didn't find anything, it became too troublesome to listen to your rant. Excuse me, ranting? I am a lady, ladies don't rant. You were ranting. Neji spoke without turning to her. So following your conclusion, you are no lady. HMPF, whatever. Ino declared and sat down looking angry. As I was saying, this bit here looks out of place. Look, one of those false caravans was attacked several days ago. Isn't that actually a good thing? Chuji asked. It means they fell for the trap. It falls out of the main picture. If something stands out, it requires investigating. Shikamaru explained. Let me check. What? Ino approached her teammates, forgetting about her irritation for the moment. There is always an official written order when a caravan is formed, but nothing is dated to the day this particular one set out. So let me get this straight. A false caravan was formed and was attacked, but nobody ordered it to be formed? Ino asked. More like we don't know who ordered it. This is too much of a coincidence to be a simple mistake in the reports. What do we know about the attack? Neji asked. Right. Look, they were attacked near these woods over here, one of the typical spots for the ambush. Shikamaru pointed at the spot on the map while looking through the report to make sure he got it right. Since the false caravan had extra soldiers, many posing as civilians, the attack was fended off, through at the cost of many casualties. The reports lacks any further details. Doesn't make sense. The only time there was any measure of success, but it appears that the caravan basically appeared out of nowhere, nobody ordering it to be formed. Let's go find Kiba and talk to Ashimaru-san. Damn ninjas. Ashimaru was just setting down for dinner, when he was told that the Konoha ninjas request his presence. For a moment the young warrior simply considered telling the ninjas to get lost, but he had a direct order to cooperate with the shinobi. After a moment Ashimaru got up with a sigh. So what do you want from me? Well, his personality sure didn't improve. Ino muttered, addressing nobody in particular. The guy simply irritated her to no end with his rude tone. Do you remember this caravan? Shikamaru handed Ashimaru the report. The high-ranking samurai glanced over it and nodded. Yeah, I issued an order. There is no order. Only the report about the results, but nothing on how or when it was formed. What nonsense are you speaking? I remember that particular caravan. The rebels actually fell for it for once. I wrote that order personally and gave it to Miho, one of my officers. I thought I had the pleasure of searching through the heads of all of your officers. Ino remarked. There was nobody named Miho there. That is because he died during that attack, you stupid girl. Ashimaru scowled. Ino really wanted to make the guy regret his words, but Neji shook his head. The young Hyuga was an intimidating figure, and Ino decided to swallow her pride for now. Shikamaru looked up with a bored expression. I guess we will go find his corpse then, Shikamaru declared. I don't know what you are trying to find, shinobi, but if you are willing to waste time, go ahead. Just try not to get killed out there. Ashimaru spun around and walked off in order to finally enjoy his meal. Why are we here? Ino covered her mouth and nose in a futile attempt to fight the horrible stench of death. It was about an hour until the sunset by the time the ninjas reached their destination. The soldiers brought back the wounded, but didn't risk staying in the hostile territory long enough to bury the dead. As the result, the area was covered with corpses of both rebels and feudal soldiers. You think you have it bad? Kiba's sensitive nose was driving him nuts. How do we identify anyone in this state? Chuji asked, for once losing his appetite. Actually, he looked quite ready to part with his dinner. Neji, try locating a corpse in samurai armor wearing officer's regalia. Shikamaru turned to the Hyuga, who immediately activated his bloodline. Man, I will never get used to how freaky your eyes look when you do that, Ino said, but Neji didn't comment on that. He was concentrated on the task. The first thing he noted that this was indeed the field of the dead, no sign of chakra outside his own and those of his teammates. There. Neji pointed at the turned-over wagon. There was indeed a body there, crushed under the heavy wagon. Judging by the expensive samurai armor, this was indeed one of Ashimaru's men. If anything, his samurai were very well equipped. Chuji, get rid of this thing, Shikamaru ordered, and the young Akimichi stepped forward. His family jutsu was perfect for such tasks, as his hands seemed to increase in size to the level where he could throw the heavy wagon away with a single swing of his now massive fist. Let's see now. Shikamaru kneeled next to the body. Now he had direct access to the pouch attached to the belt of the dead samurai. He didn't fancy touching the dead body, but with a quick move sliced the thing off with a kunai. He pulled back and opened the pouch. Well? Ino asked. Found it. What you are trying to tell me is utter nonsense. It is completely impossible. Ashimaru raised his voice. I refuse to believe it. If you have other explanations, I am all ears, Shikamaru replied calmly. This has got to be some mistake. I mean, yes? Listen, it might look suspicious, but this is simply impossible. Ashimaru again looked over the written order the ninjas brought him. He recognized his own handwriting and his own signature. It was a very typical military document, outside one small detail. Once Ashimaru issued an order he would give to the officer in charge. The officer then would take it to Commander Aswari in order to get his signature. After that, the officer would start on his assignment. The problem was that this particular report was missing Aswari's signature. Why? This explains everything. The Sodders view these paperwork matters as a mere formality. Your officer, Miho, simply forgot about the commander's signature and nobody even bothered with it. Thus, there was only one person in the chain of command who didn't know that there was a false caravan formed. This explains why the rebels actually attacked it. Nobody informed them about this caravan being a trap. I've known Aswari for several years. His loyalty is beyond question. Ashimaru spoke, though now looked unsure himself. He served with my father, they were best friends until my father. What happened? You ninjas happened along with your war. Nobody cares if you kill each other, but my family had nothing to do with your stupid war. Aswari took me in after. That explains your opinion on us, but unless you have other way to explain this, I am afraid we will have to consider Lord Aswari as our primary suspect. And what will you do? Openly accuse him of treason? That even sounds laughable. He is a respected member of the nobility. You can't throw around accusation of treason based on some slip of paper that for some reason misses his signature. We are aware of that. Neji nodded from his spot. Yes, and that is why we came to you. Ha, if you think I will help you to accuse Lord Aswari, then you are. If you are so convinced of his innocence, why join us? You will either prove that you are right, or expose him as a traitor. Your call. There was heavy silence as Ashimaru struggled over his decision. Agreeing to this would mean that he actually doubted Lord Aswari, the man who was the closest thing he now had to a family, but not acting would mean betraying his oath to the feudal lord. Fine. I will participate in this nonsense, and once you will be proved wrong, I will personally make you pay for this insult. If you will prove us wrong, Shikamaru said, and Ashimaru frowned. Remember, as you said, we can't easily accuse a high-ranking noble of treason. But you are his equal, socially at least. If it turns out we are right, you will have to carry out your duty. Everyone knew that Commander Aswari had a habit of inspecting the sentry posts personally. There was no worse fate as to be caught by the commander asleep on your post. If anything, Aswari maintained strict discipline among his troops. Often Aswari inspected the posts at night, moving around alone in order to not warn those who gave in to the temptation of dozing off. Fear of retribution made many stay awake despite long and boring shifts. But since everyone knew about that habit, nobody suspected anything when Aswari left the camp alone. Everyone just assumed he would go on his usual inspection again. In reality, Aswari used the cover of the darkness to reach the nearby hills. He stopped by a small creek and waited, but not for long as another figure appeared, wearing a long dark cloak. I heard about the ninjas. They know nothing. If they get too close, I will set up someone to take the blame. Good. Hand it over then, the less we stay here the better. Here, as usual. Aswari handed something over to the dark figure, and they prepared to part ways without anything else said. Ag. I can't move. Yeah. The moon isn't that bright tonight, but I work with what I have. A lazy voice came from the side. Neither Aswari nor his dark companion could move their heads in order to look at the ninja who trapped them using his shadow jutsu. Nobody else around. Neji appeared. His Byakugan saw nothing else of interest. What is the meaning of this? Aswari demanded, still unable to move. He though saw Chuji knock out the man in the cloak and proceed to tie him up with Kiba's help, who carefully studied the scent with Akamaru in order to trail the guy back to the rebel base. Lord Aswari. Ashimaru appeared with his blade drawn. I accuse you of treason? The young man spoke in a firm tone, but in the darkness nobody saw his tears. Chapter 42. Now that the feudal forces had secured a much better position, they could only wait for the arrival of the rebel army and prepare for the upcoming battle. The recent small victory also served the purpose of raising the morale of the soldiers, who now looked forward to the battle with obvious faith in their own abilities, their commander, and the ninja reinforcements that were so effective during the engagement. Still, the ninjas were generally considered dangerous, and for a good reason. The soldiers were happy that they had such allies, but it didn't mean that they were willing to be anywhere near them without need. This situation made some of the genin feel awkward, as back in Konoha the common folk had no fear of the shinobi. Shinoku in them. Where is everybody? Hinata looked around their small camp in confusion. The only person present in the morning was her teammate, who handed her a small bowl of rice as breakfast. Asuma-sensei took Tenten in order to scout the area as the means to prepare for the battle. Toro and Team 7 went to train, I believe. Oh, I see. Hinata accepted the food. She for a moment wondered why Asuma took Tenten, but then again, if one had a choice between the weapon mistress and the archer, the choice was fairly obvious, as Toro had a tendency of keeping those around him on edge. Only members of Team 7 seemed relatively comfortable around him, being used to his harsh personality. We will not benefit from staying in the camp. I propose we join Team 7 in training. This might improve our cooperation in the future, Shino said in his usual monotone, and Hinata nodded. She ate quickly, but not sloppily. It was frowned upon in the Hyuga clan to waste food, especially during mission, but sluggish eating was also not approved of. Thus the two genin were soon ready to join their comrades in morning training. The area around was filled with open spaces suitable for active ninja training, and it wasn't hard to locate Toro and Team 7 currently engaged in a taijutsu battle with the genin opposing the archer. Let us observe for now, Shino said. His voice didn't betray any emotion, but Hinata could tell that he had some interest in the training regime of the other genin team. Your pattern is repetitive. Toro ducked under Sasuke's kick and the young Uchiha found himself rolling on the ground. So far Toro was only on defensive, the genin giving him a hard time. The rules were simple, taijutsu only, though Sasuke was permitted to use his Sharingan, which didn't help him a moment ago. Gotcha! Naruto slid on the ground ready to ram his feet into Toro, but his target reacted in time and rolled out of the way, avoiding the attack. Toro ended up behind Naruto, who barely managed to block a punch, but the strike made Naruto wince in pain. Still, he grabbed onto Toro's hand keeping him in place, while Sakura appeared from behind aiming a spin kick Toro's back. Unfortunately, the archer leaned away from the strike and pulled Naruto in his place, and a moment later the blonde genin fell to the ground as Sakura's leg connected with his face. The result surprised and shocked the pink-haired kunoichi, who didn't react when Toro sent her flying back with a swift kick. Sakura! Sasuke grabbed Sakura's stretched hand while she was in mid-air and swung her around. She immediately understood his plan and used the momentum to slam both her feet into Toro's chest, knocking the archer down on his back. Impressive combination, Shino stated. The taijutsu battle went on for a while longer, with the genin scoring a couple of more strikes against Toro, but not without being forced to eat dirt a couple of times themselves, and if Sasuke and Sakura took time to regain their breath, Naruto barely seemed winded. Uchiha, use more variety in your approaches. Your attacks are getting painfully predictable unless you are cooperating with your teammates. Got it. Sasuke nodded. Haruno, be more observant of your surroundings unless it was your goal to harm your teammate. Then again, good combined effort between you and the Uchiha. Sorry, Naruto. Sakura turned to the blonde who rubbed his jaw. Sakura didn't look strong, but when she kicked hard. Don't worry, Sakura-chan, you know me, this is nothing. Naruto grinned. We have guests. Sasuke pointed back with his thumb at Shino and Hinata, who were now walking towards them. We apologize if we interrupted anything, but it could be fruitful for us to train together, Shino said. I like that idea. Naruto smiled. I know that training with Hinata is great, she is awesome. Eep. Hinata suddenly went red, hiding a bit behind her teammate. Sure, why not? Sakura shrugged. HN. Did that HN mean yes or no or maybe? Naruto turned to Sasuke. Whatever. That didn't answer my question. Naruto fumed. Enough wasting time. Toro spoke. Uzumaki pull-ups. Damn. Naruto cursed, but went over to the tree followed by Sasuke and Sakura. The blonde walked up the tree trunk finding a nice thick branch high above the ground and grabbed it. Shino and Hinata watched this with some confusion, wondering why Naruto grumbled over such a simple exercise. They got their answers when Sakura and Sasuke both jumped up grabbing onto Naruto's feet, adding their weight, and only then the blonde began doing pull-ups, grunting from the effort. Shut it, Dobe, maybe you will not be so short. Sasuke smirked. You keep that up and you will be doing push-ups with Gamabunta on your back. Naruto snapped back as he pulled up himself and his two teammates. That is unusual. Shino's eyebrows appeared over his glasses, while Hinata paled. That looked more like a torture than any kind of training. Hyuga and Aburame. Toro looked over the two genin, and Hinata felt incredibly uncomfortable under his gaze. You come from famous ninja clans. I suspect you share the common flaw of completely relying on your clan techniques. That is your greatest weakness that can easily be exploited. I request more specifics. Shino asked. Knowing what clan you come from, I can easily guess your combat styles and act accordingly. An unknown ninja has an advantage of always being a puzzle. Your reactions to attacks, your possible counters, your abilities and techniques are fairly predictable. Speak up, Hyuga. I am working on a modification to my clan taijutsu style. It needs work, but I am trying. Toro clearly didn't expect that. The Hyugas had a reputation of being very conservative when it came down to their clan technique and often opposed innovations. I was unaware of that. Shino turned to his teammate, but Hinata didn't say anything else. What exactly are you trying to achieve, Hyuga? A less direct approach. I prefer T2. Avoid attacks instead of blocking. Evasive defense against a piercing offense. This requires a completely different mindset, fighting rhythm and training system. Flexibility and reaction time are required for something like this to work. Uchiha, get over here! Thank you. Naruto sighed when he no longer felt Sasuke attached to his leg. What? Sasuke asked with mild interest. You will train with the Hyuga. Attack in close quarters, but without the sword. The Hyuga will try to dodge and avoid you, without using the Byakugan. Without? Hinata asked. I will explain, Sasuke offered. Come. As for you, Aburame, you will work with me on your stealth. Since your combat relies on you staying out of trouble, it should be useful for you too. Ag. Naruto's hands finally slipped and he fell down on the ground with a loud crash. Sakura managed to land more or less neatly on her feet, but just barely avoided Naruto landing on her. Watch it where you crash. Sakura turned to her prone teammate. Ow. Naruto sat up rubbing his head. Hinata felt strange fighting without her Byakugan activated. It almost felt unnatural, and without the additional field of vision she found herself hard-pressed to always keep Sasuke in her sight. He explained that one shouldn't rely on the eyes too much, even if those eyes were very special. Sasuke understood how hard it was to stop relying completely on the ocular abilities granted by an advanced bloodline. But he understood that only by training other senses one could avoid being at a disadvantage in the situation where one could counter the abilities of the Sharingan, or in Hinata's case Byakugan. You are slippery, Sasuke scowled. Perhaps Hinata was not as fast or aggressive as other opponents Sasuke encountered. She moved in a way that made it hard to land a solid blow. For now she only defended herself, following Toro's instructions, but Sasuke noticed that on several occasions she avoided his strikes in a manner that left him open for counterattacks. That meant that Sasuke began to aim his strikes very carefully. Basically this was a fair trade between the two genin. While Hinata learned to dodge in a manner that suited her style, Sasuke learned to plan out his attacks in order to try and pin out down his elusive opponent. Sometimes Hinata showed that she could bend her body at almost unnatural angles in order to avoid him. Ag. Hinata finally allowed Sasuke to slid inside her guard and then the Uchiha threw her over his head, slamming the girl hard into the ground and pinning her down with her knee. The reason why Sasuke managed to finally strike was because Hinata was completely out of breath by that time. Sasuke simply outlasted her, and that made him think. He achieved success not through skill, but through his higher stamina. He should really work on his taijutsu forms as even this girl was able to predict his attack patterns in a way similar to Toro, though she had a different way of countering the threat. We should try again. Sasuke stood up looking at Hinata and then offered his hand helping the girl get up. Yes, of course. Hinata nodded. She herself noticed many interesting things. One was especially noticeable, as she managed to last much longer than she usually did during training. Constant use of Byakugan made her burn out quicker, and even though keeping up with Sasuke without the Byakugan was harder, she was able to cope. She had to learn to carefully decide when activating the Byakugan was necessary and when she could handle the fight without it. This would eventually allow her to save energy and last longer in battle. Hey, Sakura-chan, I am finished. Thanks, Naruto, just put it next to my backpack, Sakura said with a smile. Even though she could now make workable storage seals, Naruto still was the best among them when it came to making those, and he worked twice as fast. Somehow he also seemed to enjoy it, despite it forcing him to sit still. Hey Sasuke, made you one too! Naruto rolled up the scroll when he saw Sasuke and Hinata approach. Both looked tired, but also satisfied by their training. Thanks. Sasuke nodded after inspecting the storage seal. Hey Hinata, you need me to make storage seals for you, since while I am at it. Thank you, Naruto-kun, but my clan supplies me with that kind of equipment. Oh. Naruto looked down a bit. But I wouldn't mind learning to make those. Hinata managed out. Great, and you might later show us how to make that salve of yours. Yeah, I was meaning to ask you about that, Hinata. Sakura looked up from the pot as she was making dinner, though her cooking skills were far from the best. I mean, I wanted to learn some medical jutsu, but knowing how to make medicine is also useful. I will show you, Hinata said with a blush. Luckily for her, the attention soon shifted when another pair approached. Toro silently sat down waiting from the meal, while Shino sort of slumped down next to Sasuke, his clothes dirty, his hair a total mess and a large bruise on his forehead. Hinata tilted her head and silently handed Shino a jar of her salve she had just pulled out of the inner pocket of her jacket. Thank you? Shino spoke, accepting the medicine. What did he make you do? Naruto ached with a laugh. He made me hide, Shino replied while applying the salve. Judging by the way you look, he found you. Sasuke smirked. The Aburame turned to the young Uchiha, and Sasuke heard the angry buzzing coming from inside the bug user, but that only made Sasuke turn away with an even more satisfied smirk. Toro-san made it his task to point out the flaws in my technique, Shino said with a sigh. I pointed out the lack of your stealth techniques, Aburame. Your breed of insects is hard to find in wild nature, is easy to identify, and they are easy to trail back to you. They make decent sentries, but they will not serve the purpose of hiding your presence. I warned you not to rely on them. I will remember that, Shino said. You are also physically fragile. Sakura takes a hit better than you. I shall take measures in order to improve my performance, Shino said after glancing at Sakura. It was hard to believe that the pink-haired girl had any measure of endurance whatsoever. Oh, you are all here, great, saves me the trouble of finding you all. Asuma and Tenten appeared. I don't want to know. Tenten looked over Shino and sat down with a tired sigh. I'm more or less planned out our actions in the upcoming battle. We will discuss it over a nice hot meal, Asuma said and pulled out a cigarette out of his pack, but the thing was immediately snatched by Sakura. No smoking during dinner. Huh! Man, you are like Kurenai. Asuma frowned. Don't smoke here, don't smoke there, don't smoke anywhere. That is the way I relax, girl. You are too relaxed as it is, Sakura growled. I never thought I'd say it, but Kakashi and his smut are better. His books don't smell, at least, Sasuke noted. Well, excuse me. Smoking isn't generally that frowned upon, unlike reading some pervy book. Since when am I worse than Kakashi? You are not. Naruto grinned. You are not chronically late. And you don't offer us some weird things to wear, Tenten added and shivered remembering how Guy offered her the green spandex suit. The image of herself wearing that was like a scene from a nightmare, a bad one at that. Silence raised as everyone looked at Hinata and Shino waiting for their comment. I am sorry. Kurenai-sensei isn't weird in any way, Hinata said. You'd be surprised. Asuma rolled his eyes. Forget I said that. Huh? What was that? I shall say nothing. Asuma shook his head, cursing himself for not keeping his mouth shut. Now Kurenai was going to kill him, or make him give up on cigarettes, which was worse, since Asuma could imagine being dead and not smoking, but he couldn't imagine being alive and being deprived of his cigarettes. Dinner ready! Sakura declared and began passing out the bowls. Well, here we are. You really think this will be profitable? One way or another. 5 ninjas landed among the trees on the other side of the river. They were all quite unique. One was a large man, with long muscle-covered arms. He was not wearing any shirt, revealing his mighty chest and broad shoulders. Clearly he was incredibly strong physically. Then there were 2 who looked quite similar, dressed in matching clothes and with similar dark blue hair. One was a lady, if her curvy body was of any indication, while the other looked like her male version, while holding a large scimitar on his shoulder. The female was also armed, though she had a long narrow blade at her side, instead of a larger weapon her look-alike held. The 4th was another woman with short spiky hair and a maniacal grin on her face. She sort of danced on one spot constantly, as if incapable of standing still. One could say she resembled a kid who had too much sugar, unless you ruled out those eyes that had a murderous gleam in them. In the middle stood the man with an aura of a leader. Despite not looking as impressive as some of his companions, there was something about him that practically screamed of danger. His stance and his body language showed that he was like a tight spring, ready to attack at any given moment and strike without any hesitation. He also had a very unusual piece of gear for someone who was obviously a shinobi. On his back was a large oval shield that lacked any kind of detail. It looked new, the surface lacking any dents that such equipment usually had after prolonged use. I don't care as long as there will be bones to crush and skulls to bash. The large man slammed his large fist into his palm with enough force to create a shockwave that nearly knocked others back. Oh yes, yes. With foes I will play. Their arms will go snip, snip, and over their blood I shall skip, skip. The maniacal one spoke in a strange singing manner while jumping on one foot. Shut up, Wado. The lookalikes spoke in unison, turning to the weird woman. They even had almost identical expressions on their faces. No need for hostilities. I think there will be plenty of chances for us to demonstrate our abilities and make so fine coin while we are at it. I don't know why, but I smell a golden opportunity. Chapter 43. Stand guard. Nobody is to enter and nobody is to leave without my direct order. Got it? Yes, Lord Ashimaru. The two feudal soldiers saluted and watched their commander walk away. A few moments he came back with the ninjas, leading a tied-up Lord Uzwari. He didn't explain anything, but it was clear that the young warrior had to have an incredibly good reason to imprison the commander of the local forces. He is not going anywhere, Ashimaru said after returning to his tent. The ninjas were already there, except for Neji and Kiba. The Inuzuka, along with his partner Akamaru, was busy tracking Uzwari's contact back to the rebel camp using the fresh trail. Neji would be needed to scout the area using the impressive range of his Byakugan to bring back the information regarding the layout of the rebel base, their defenses, overall numbers. Then we have time to think about our next move, Shikamaru sighed. Yes, of course, let's think. Ashimaru scowled and sat down behind his desk. Ino noted that the young man seemed to age considerably after the things he found out not so long ago. If before he was filled with energy, then now his whole figure seemed to deflate. Without a doubt Uzwari's betrayal was an incredible blow to him, and perhaps it was only the sense of duty before his men and his country that made Ashimaru go on. I don't really understand. Chuji frowned. Ashimaru described Lord Uzwari as a very loyal person. Why would he betray their cause like this? I wish I knew. Ashimaru shook his head. I still hope that this is some kind of a mistake, or a misunderstanding, but we need to discover his motive. Shikamaru agreed. Perhaps this is an isolated incident, but on the other hand Uzwari could be a part of some sort of a conspiracy. Such high-ranking nobles do not commit treason without a good reason. What do you think I should do? No matter what you say, I will not interrogate Lord Uzwari, nor will I permit information to be pulled out of him by the means of torture, Ashimaru said, his eyes for a moment regaining that spark they had before. I am not suggesting that. We have Ino, who can use a more delicate approach. Right, I forgot that your teammate deals with the matter of the mind. I am still not sure I am comfortable to allow you to perform your technique. This is the fastest way we have and probably the safest. Right, Ino? Yes, I can do that. Ino nodded after thinking it over. What are the dangers? Ashimaru asked. Well, it is fairly easy when a person willingly allows me inside, like when I looked through the heads of your men. Incredibly dirty thoughts, by the way, so you. Back on the topic, Ino. Shikamaru sighed and muttered something that resembled troublesome. Whatever, man, you are lazy. How on earth did you even become a Chunin with that attitude? Yamanaka-san, right now, I see why you are not Chunin yet. Ashimaru raised his voice. He was in a foul mood and the blonde quickly irritated him. Huh! How rude, you are speaking with a lady you know, Ino said with her hands crossed on her chest, but Ashimaru only growled at that in a manner that made Ino drop her bossy attitude and return to the matter at hand. Fine. Uzwari obviously will resist me, but he is no ninja and his mental barriers should be no problem. I'd say that the danger for him is minimal. Minimal? Elaborate on that, Ashimaru demanded. When a person fights against someone invading his mind, it creates mental strain, and the more he fights, the higher is the strain. Fortunately, those not trained as shinobi have relatively weak abilities of opposing such attacks. The worst your lord will suffer is one hell of a migraine, but nobody ever died of that. Ashimaru leaned back. He didn't want to allow this young kunoichi to perform her mind technique on Uzwari, but with such low risks it was the best option he had available. He also understood that if there was any way to get any kind of proof that Uzwari was actually innocent, it was this. Ashimaru nodded to himself, and walked outside of his tent. The ninjas heard him bark out several orders to the guards outside, and several minutes later 2 armed soldiers led the still-tied Uzwari into the tent. Ashimaru dismissed him with a wave of his hand after the former commander was seated on one of the spare chairs. Ashimaru, I know how this looks, but please, listen to me. All can be explained. Uzwari began, not looking at the ninjas, who coldly stared at the man. I am afraid I can't do that. I must carry out my duty. If you are indeed innocent, then we will soon find out about it, and I will gladly beg you of forgiveness on my knees. But if it will be proved that you indeed betrayed our cause, may the god have mercy on your soul. Yamanaka, you may begin when ready. What? You are going to let her? No, I refuse. Uzwari shook his head, itching back, away from Ino, who slowly advanced on the tied-up man, mentally preparing for her jutsu. This will be uncomfortable, but not painful, and the less you oppose me, the better. Stay away. I am. Ino didn't listen as she pressed her fingers to the temples of Uzwari's head after flashing through seals. Soon the man stopped trying to move his head and even his eyes stopped moving, as the Yamanaka and the former commander started at each other without blinking. There was clearly some sort of a struggle going on, the one you could not see or hear, but the one you could feel. It was as if the air became thicker and it became harder to breathe, until finally the tension disappeared and Ino released a breath of relief. Her eyes closed, while Aswari sort of slumped back in his chair. She is in, Shikamaru explained. How long will it take? Ashimaru asked, wiping the sweat off his forehead after witnessing such a strange display. The only sign of something actually happening was that Ino's eyebrows kept moving up and down as if she was reading something with her eyes closed. Depends on the amount of information she will need to look through. Let's give her time. Yes, how about we have late supper in order to pass the time? Chuji offered, earning a sigh from Shikamaru. Ashimaru though agreed and ordered the men outside to bring something to eat for him and the shinobi present. Despite being hungry, Ashimaru couldn't force anything down his throat and was forced to watch Chuji eat for 3. He always thought that ninjas were supposed to be physically strong and thus maintain strict diets, but apparently he was wrong. Shikamaru though ate slowly, almost lazily, which somehow suited him. Umph. Ino took a deep breath and released Aswari. She took a step back and shook her head before opening her eyes. Aswari himself was left unconscious after she released him. Took you longer than I expected, Shikamaru mentioned and took some more rice. So, what is it? Ashimaru looked at Ino. Well, how do I put? That man is scum, beyond scum even. Explain yourself, Ashimaru demanded, slamming his hands against the table. Where to begin? Ino pressed her finger against her lips, thinking. You asked about his motive, right? Well, you are his motive. I don't understand. What does it all have to do with me? You said Aswari and your father served together, right? Yes, that is true. They were good friends. According to what Aswari told you. Actually, they weren't. And your father's death was also set up by Aswari. This is why. He took me in after my father died. Of course. You were the only heir of a very wealthy family. Far wealthier than that Aswari came from. Naturally, as your guardian, he had access to all the funds of your family, and that is the reason you were kept alive and believing that Aswari had your best interests at heart. Ino, that is all very interesting, but our mission is here and now. Why did Aswari leak information to the rebel forces? Shikamaru asked, resting his chin on his palm. Because with Ashimaru old enough to marry and form his own family, there was a danger of Aswari losing his unconditional access to Ashimaru's family fortune. It would be quite easy to set up a death of young talented commander during some sort of skirmish. All Aswari had to do was to eventually send Ashimaru with some personal mission and give the necessary information to the rebels. Since everyone knew that Aswari was the closest thing Ashimaru had to a father, nobody would object to him inheriting the fortune and nobody would suspect him being involved in such a death. After all, nobody suspected him of the death of Ashimaru's father. Whoa, that is low, Choiji said. He felt sad for the young warrior whose hands were trembling from anger. A moment later he leapt over the table and grabbed Aswari by his clothes, lifting him off his feet. You traitorous bastard! I trusted you, I loved you! How dare you! Aswari didn't answer since he was still out cold. Arg! The traitorous man was thrown at the table, knocking it over and spilling the remains of the meal across the floor. Such a waste, Chuji grumbled. All these years, my whole life, is a damn lie. Ashimaru unsheathed his sword and prepared to impale the prone man, but was stopped in the middle of a slash that was aimed at the exposed throat of the former commander. Let me go. Ninja! Ashimaru struggled against Shikamaru's shadow possession jutsu, but couldn't move an inch. It was a strange feeling, being unable to actually move despite being in perfect health. This quite troublesome, but I am afraid I can't do that. It would be best to allow the feudal lord decide his fate. Shikamaru scratched his head and Ashimaru was forced to repeat his action despite how ridiculous it looked. You can release me now. I will not harm him. For now. You sure? I give you my word, and right now, my pride is the only thing I have left. I am sorry that I allowed my anger to get the best of me. Ashimaru felt how the invisible force that held his body in place disappeared. He looked at Aswari and with a sigh sheathed his sword after taking a few calming breaths. I would like to think now. We will talk in the morning when your teammates return. For now I need to get my thoughts in order. Sure, no problem, Ino said and looked at her teammates. She could understand that after such news anyone would need time to regain his bearings. She also felt tired after performing her technique and wanted to sleep. For some reason, after searching through Aswari's mind, she also felt dirty and wanted a shower. And ordered the men outside to come and take him away. Ashimaru nodded towards the still prone man, wishing to have him out of his sight. We'll hand him over to those outside. Help me out, Chuji. Sure. Shikamaru and Chuji easily picked up the traitor, doing Ashimaru the small favor of getting the man out of his sight. Yeah, I smell it too, we are getting closer. Neji didn't comment on the fact that his current teammate was socializing with the dog. Sure, he knew that members of the Aizuka clan were very close to their dog partners, but never suspected them to be so close. Neji also somehow had a hunch that the little white puppy that was Kiba's partner was the brains behind their duo. That thought somewhat amused the stoic Hyuga, but naturally he never showed it. We are really close now. Me and Akamaru are picking up scents of many people. If we move any closer without preparation, we might run into their sentries or local patrols. Agreed. I will have a look. Byakugan. Since Kiba was on one team with Hinata most of the time, he was quite used to the picture of a Hyuga with an activated Byakugan. That bloodline, when active, could even make a girl as gentle and caring as Hinata look fierce. Neiji's Byakugan had great range, and he was confident in his ability to spot all potential threats. The main problem was that for the time being they had to conceal their presence. Several mercenary thugs were not a real threat to the trained ninjas, but alerting the enemy encampment would make all of their earlier achievements useless. Neji was not about to let their work go down the drain. Neji also silently praised the old Hokage who composed the teams. A tracker from an Inuzuka clan was an invaluable asset on such missions. Damn it! Neji cursed and leaned back after deactivating his ocular jutsu. What happened? They are not taking any chances. I hate to admit it, but will not be able to slip by those patrols without getting noticed. Even under the cover of darkness. We could take out one patrol and use the transformation jutsu to impersonate them, Kiba suggested. No good, they are using a password system and they whisper it. I couldn't even read their lips. Damn, where is that Ino when you actually need her? She'd get the password out no problem. I suspect she is busy with the traitor. I am afraid advancing any further is too risky for the two of us. Well, for us maybe, but not for Akamaru, Kiba said proudly, and the tiny puppy seemed to smirk looking at Neji. The Hyuga blinked, feeling stupid. Alright boy, you need to blend in, Kiba instructed, and the pup seemed to release an annoyed whine before moving over to some mud. Neji watched as the white dog began rolling in the mud as if laying, but the reason was clear. The snow-white fur soon turned a dark shade of brown, with pieces of leaves stuck here and there. It was nearly impossible to spot the puppy in the darkness now without using the Byakugan. Ahem, good. Akamaru, we need the layout of their camp, possible number of men, and if you can, try to identify the man in charge, Neji said. He couldn't help but feel awkward giving instruction to a dog, but such was the life of a ninja. Akamaru, though clearly understood, gave a low bark of acknowledgement and disappeared into some bushes. I guess we wait now. Kiba sighed and settled down on the ground, trying to feel as comfortable as possible. How long do you think your partner will need to bring back the needed information? Not that much. Akamaru has an eye for detail, and right now he is quite hard to spot. If anything, he will be mistaken for some wild animal. I doubt these thugs expect a dog to spy on them. I can understand that, Neji admitted. I've been meaning to ask for a while. Kiba narrowed his eyes. How are things between you and Hinata? Why such a question? Because she is my teammate and you are a jerk. When will you people stop calling me that? Eventually. If you are lucky. Kiba tried not to laugh, but still snorted into his fist. Things are better between me and my cousin. You could say that we are at peace and have mutual understanding. I suppose I should mention that I regret my actions during the preliminaries. Ha, you should. And it only took Naruto beating you to a bloody pulp to see that. Uzumaki Naruto proved hard to understand. I hold no grudge for his victory, he helped me learn a valuable lesson, so I am even somewhat grateful to him. I know what you mean. He knocked me down a peg or two too. But that was our mutual mistake. Nothing is predetermined in the life of a shinobi. If a genius can lose to the worst student ever, then who says that idiot can't become Hokage? Don't get me wrong, I still would not bet my money on Naruto getting the title, but it just doesn't sound as outrageous as it once did, eh? True. Neji nodded. Uzumaki has a talent to achieve the impossible. A rare skill indeed, but it makes him into a dangerous opponent. I would like to face him in battle someday again to see if I've changed. So, ask him for a spar when we get back. No, not yet. I am not ready yet to face him again. He far outclasses me spiritually, and his determination will overcome anything I can throw at him right now. But I will beat him one day and then thank him for being there to fight me. Maybe you will. Kiba shrugged. It is easier for me. He beat me, I need to train and get stronger. End of the story. Yes, it is simpler, Neji admitted. Just like you are. And you are surprised people call you a jerk? Man, when you die there will be a writing on the memorial stone, "Here lies Neji, the jerk." I do not find that amusing, Kiba. Am I laughing? You should learn a bit from your cousin. She is a good teammate and a good person first and a Hyuga later. That overall makes her better even if she is not as good at juken as you. If you keep up the jerk act, then the next time you fight Naruto, he will laugh at you again. I'll think about it. Neji closed his eyes in deep thought. He already told Hinata that she was different from him and that they would become stronger differently. But only now he began to realize that Hinata was much stronger than him as a person. She faced tragedies in her life, she suffered losses, she suffered neglect, but she remained true to herself and never broke. Neji couldn't say the same about himself. Now that he thought about people like Naruto or Hinata, he realized that when compared to them, he looked pathetic. Neji began to doze off while thinking, until he heard something move through the bushes. A moment later Akamaru appeared and jumped into Kiba's hands, also covering the Inuzuka's jacket with mud. Thanks a lot, buddy. Kiba muttered, and Neji could have sworn that the little puppy gave his variant of a sheepish grin. Chapter 44. The rebel army arrived late in the night, but didn't immediately attack. The scouts had already reported that the feudal army had annihilated the vanguard and was firmly holding the opposite end of the bridge. This meant that the rebels would have to attack along the bridge to try and punch their way out into open plain, where they would be able to overwhelm the feudal forces using their numerical superiority. But such a strategy would mean heavy casualties and without proper preparation would be simply suicidal. So it was decided to make camp and allow the men to rest and eat. Afraid of diversions, the rebels also had set up sentries. Kinho-sama, you'd better see this. Damn, what now? The rebel leader got up with a frown. He was about to go to sleep when one of his lieutenants rushed into the tent, nearly knocking over a weapon rack. Kinho spread his hands, stretching the shoulders. He was a large man, easily a head taller than most, and broad in shoulders. When clad in full set of samurai armor, he was an intimidating figure. He also had relatively short temper, but was generous to those that served him loyally. Apparently he was also not bound by any moral principles as he waged war, allowing the mercenaries to do practically anything they wished. He himself seemed to hold some sort of a grudge against the feudal lord. Well, a grudge was putting it too mildly. It was actually borderline hatred for the men, on a level where it was forbidden to even mention the name of the official ruler of the Land of Fire. There are people here, strange people. Now what made you think that I want to see them? I think they are ninjas. Ninjas? Pfft, I don't care about shinobi, they are more trouble than they are worth, but fine, let's go see what they want. Kinho got up after grabbing his own katana. He walked out of his tent and saw a small group of people standing a small distance away, surrounded by several dozen of his men. Somehow it didn't seem like the ninjas were concerned about being surrounded by strong and well-armed men. Quite the opposite, they seemed relaxed, even enjoying the barely suppressed fear of the rebel fighters. So, what purpose do you have here? Speak up, I have little patience, Kinho said. Despite his rude tone, the ninja in the middle stepped forward with a pleasant smile on his face. Kinho noted that the man was armed only with a large oval shield, not counting the shuriken and kunai holsters that were trademark weapons for shinobi of any nation. The ninjas generally used kunai and shuriken not because those were the most impressive or lethal of weapons. Quite the opposite, either really packed that much of a punch when compared to larger weapons, but they were light, easy to handle, and could be carried in large quantities. An experienced shinobi also could easily overcome their drawbacks. A well-aimed shuriken could slice open the throat. A quick strike with a kunai to the temple was an instant kill. Another advantage was that kunai and shuriken were easy to make and replace after battle. Naturally, those simple tools could not satisfy all of the ninjas, but they created some sort of a minimal standard for those who wanted to be called shinobi. You simply could not be a competent ninja without knowing how to properly use basic ninja tools. Me and my small group of colleagues would like to offer you my services. Shinobi of our level can be a great asset to a man such as you. A man such as me has no need for shinobi. My army crushed all opposition so far without any trouble. But your army has not faced ninjas yet. Our services usually cost quite a bit, but just to show our good intentions I am willing to share a bit of information for free. You see, the feudal army is not beyond using ninjas for support, and Konoha did provide shinobi. You will face people like us tomorrow, and to fight a ninja you need to either be a ninja or employ a ninja. You give yourselves too much credit. Ninjas are little more than fancy, flashy tricks. If the feudal army wants to rely on people of your profession, so be it, it won't make any difference. I see, so that is your opinion. Well, opinions can change, just like everything else. We will leave for now, the ninja said with a smirk and spun around. A moment later the ninjas disappeared and nobody around even noticed when they actually left. Annoying tricksters. Next time cut off their feet and throw them out to die instead of wasting my time. Kinhuo went back to his tent in a foul mood. The rogue ninjas in the meantime assembled in the woods not far from the rebel army. So what now, Zin? The tall muscle-covered man asked, looking annoyed. Yes. When will we have blood to spill, and screams to hear? The maniacal one skipped on one spot, giving everyone a wicked toothy grin that could make children have nightmares. Patience. I expected such an answer from a man of such arrogance. Let him see for himself what Shinobi can do, and after tomorrow he will be begging us to help him. And if he wins? The nearly identical man and woman spoke in perfect unison. Then we take him out and sell his head to the feudal lord. I am sure he will be generous. We will do this anyway. So we get paid a nice sum anyway? I like it. The large man nodded. Yes. Tomorrow we will also have a chance to observe those Konoha ninjas in battle. It will not hurt to know how good they actually are. From what I gather they are mostly just brats. Aren't even worth the effort. Brats scream loud. The lookalikes rubbed their faces. Form up ranks. Spears in the front. Archers take position in the back. Quickly, that rebel scum won't wait for you to prepare. The huge masses of people moved following the orders of the officers that were busy organizing the Ashigaru in battle formation in accordance with the battle plan. Proper discipline was the key. It was what allowed to effectively operate such large masses of people without it turning into pure chaos. The Konoha ninjas were also preparing. Asuma was in the back. Being the most experienced and skilled shinobi present, he was expected to hold back until the critical moment. He also fought many battles, and his experience would prove invaluable in order to command the troops. Naruto was among the Ashigaru in the front lines. His clones were expected to soak up as much damage as possible. He was also the only genin present who PRBBOY had enough stamina to last throughout the battle without pulling back. Sasuke was among the professional samurai that were held back as a strategic reserve. Toro and Tenten were among the archers. Sakura, Hinata and Shino were formed into a specialized unit with a very important task. You can almost cut the tension, Tenten muttered. The soldiers were visibly nervous. You could see the rebel army forming up on the other side of the river, and it was clear that they greatly outnumbered the feudal force holding the bridge. On the other end, Kinhuo observed the opposing army with a confident smile. He rode forward and looked back at his men. He knew that the sheer size of his army was enough to make the feudal soldier tremble in fear. He practically fed on it. It was intoxicating. You know what I see there, on the other side of this bridge? I see cowards. Smell the air, it is filled with the stench of fear. They know that today we will crush them, that will cut them down and show them our strength. The rebels released a cheer, waving their weapons in approval. They were confident and right now could safely express their belief in their victory. They were a safe distance away, and their bravado was like a crude but effective psychological attack against the feudal forces. In the heat of battle there was no time for fear, it was either kill or be killed, but right now Kinhuo did all he could to break the morale of the feudal soldiers. Suddenly Kinhuo's mount raised on hind legs and fell over, throwing the rebel leader out of the saddle. Kinhuo rolled on the ground and got up quickly, trying to understand what happened. He looked at the horse and saw that it was killed by a long white arrow that went straight through the neck. But we aren't close enough. The rebel leader muttered in disbelief and took a careful step back. He barely reacted, jumping away when he saw another arrow appear. This one flew by, nearly striking the rebel leader, but instead it went into the chest of a nearby rebel swordsman that fell down to his knees and then fell face down. No longer the rebels cheered, instead most looked confused. Until Kinhuo raised his sword. Charge! With a mighty roar, the first wave of the rebel army charged across the bridge. Such an enormous mass of people, it seemed impossible to stop such a force moving towards you with the intent to kill. Draw! Toro raised his bow once more, pulling back the string, and this time the feudal archers did the same, following his instruction, though he wasn't officially in charge. Toro knew the range of a regular bow and was waiting for the rebel forces to cross the invisible line. Release! For a moment the arrows blocked out the sun before they began to rain down on the rebels. Nearly every arrow found a target in the tight mass of bodies. Many were killed, even more were wounded, but the mass of rebel soldiers kept coming. Release! Another volley raised into the air, this time even more destructive than the first. Fire at will! Arrows were like raindrops as they showered the rebels. It was a never-ending stream of death. The numerous bodies that now littered the middle of the bridge slowed down the advance of the rebel forces. Many wounded were crushed to death by the stampede of their own allies. Many were pushed over the railing, falling into the cold water that claimed their lives. My turn, give me a boost! Tenten reached out for her scrolls and took a running start. Toro turned around and lowered his bow. A moment later Tenten jumped, landing on the shaft of the bow. Every other weapon would have broken instantly under the weight of a person, but Toro's weapon didn't even bend. Instead, the archer used it to propel the weapon mistress high into the air, where she unrolled her scrolls, forcing dozens of large shuriken to appear. Without any hesitation they were sent at the advancing rebels, many of whom raised their heads in surprise. But Tenten wasn't finished. She wasn't a chakra maniac like Naruto and could perform this jutsu on a couple of times a day, but right now it would be well worth it. Shodown Shuriken no Jutsu. Dozens of large shuriken multiplied into about 100 and practically wiped out the front rows of the rebels, the large spinning masses of metal cleaving through the ranks like knife through butter, severing limbs and sometimes cutting people in half without stopping. It was pure carnage, and blood already flowed in rivers raining down from the bridge and staining the waters of the river red. The much weakened wave of the rebels smashed into the front ranks of the feudal Shigeru, many getting impaled by the spears. Now it wasn't just screams, but also sounds of metal clashing against metal, or slicing through the flesh. "Get back, bastard!" Naruto blocked a slash by a kunai, and then kicked the rebel swordsman away. Clones were all over the places, often taking the hits for the feudal soldiers and providing the allied fighters with a good opening. One after another the clones disappeared in trademark puffs of smoke, but now before causing some damage. Naruto didn't look impressive, but his punches and kicks were strong enough to break bones like some twigs, and he proved fast and elusive. Still, soon enough his outfit supported quite a few holes and he had several cuts, mostly on his arms, but in the heat of battle nobody noticed how fast they healed. Where one would already be on the ground unable to move a finger from exhaustion, Naruto was only beginning to show signs of fatigue. Despite the best efforts, the feudal forces were getting pushed back as Kinho kept sending wave after a wave of his fighters into battle. It seemed that the rebels were mere moments away from breaking through. They practically tasted victory, until another force joined the battle. The samurai were few in numbers, but they were fighters from birth, people who honed their skills with the blade for many years, and they now showed their prowess. No blade was as feared and as respected as a katana. Forged by true masters, this blade was as beautiful as it was deadly. It was a breathtaking sigh, watching a master becoming one with his weapon, the blade moving through the air in wide graceful arcs, slicing through the flesh with any visible effort like it was air. But a ninja used a sword not like a samurai, and there was no better way to see it than watching a ninja swordman fighting alongside a samurai. Sasuke's moves were a complex combination of slashes, kicks, punches and throws, each setting up room for the next, as the Uchiha sliced through the ranks of the rebels. His Sharingan allowed him to dodge with ease and strike without missing. To many his figure was reduced to a blur that left behind only dead or wounded, who screamed in agony. "Back!" Sasuke grabbed some samurai by his armor and pulled the grown man back like his was a little kid, saving him from getting disemboweled. That for a moment left Sasuke open with half a dozen rebels launching towards him in order to cut down the deadly ninja. Fire style, fireball jutsu! No element was as feared as fire. It didn't just kill, it killed slowly and painfully. The smell of the burning flesh was disgusting, but Sasuke without any remorse launched another fireball that had a no less dramatic effect. "Care for some company, team?" Naruto spoke while shielding Sasuke's back from any possible attacks. "HN." Sasuke nodded while wiping blood off his face, an unpleasant taste of iron filling his mouth. "Faster, guys, I can't keep up this illusion forever," Sakura whispered. She was standing upside down listening how hundreds of men rushed across the bridge above her. Shino and Hinata were busy setting up explosive tags in weak spots that Hinata located using her Byakugan. Every crack or workout support beam were targeted in a way to collapse the small section of the bridge. Blowing it up completely was out of the question as the feudal army would need it, but making a gap small enough to be easily repaired, but wide enough to be impossible to jump over by a regular person, that was another story. The main problem were the rebel archers stationed on the shore. They couldn't actively participate in the battle, but none of the genin fancied completing their delicate mission under a hail of arrows, so Sakura used her illusionary skills to provide them with cover. "We are almost done, Sakura-san," Shino said, his hands working quickly setting up the tags. Hinata was a small distance away, also working as quickly as her abilities allowed her. "I am running out of chakra." The illusion Sakura was using was simple because it was designed to hide, a task far simpler than actually attacking by the means of an illusion. On the other hand, it was designed to not only hide the ninjas visually, but also to cover the noise they were making, or the sound of speech. It came at a cost, as Sakura had to pour her chakra into a jutsu in a steady stream. At first it seemed easy, but eventually the strain began to show. Sakura felt how her control over the chakra in her feet was slipping as she struggled to keep defying the laws of gravity. "Last one!" Hinata called out, and just then Sakura finally felt she could no longer keep up. The illusion disappeared and she began falling down, feeling completely exhausted. I got her! Shino kicked off the bridge and caught up to Sakura in midair. He landed on the water surface holding the girl bridal style. Unfortunately, the rebels noticed them and fired a volley of arrows. Dive! Hinata yelled and disappeared under the surface. Shino simply released the chakra flow, instantly falling into the water. The arrows flew by harmlessly, but when the genin surfaced they saw that another volley was fired at them. Wind style, great breakthrough! A powerful blast of wind easily blew the volley of arrows away. It actually was strong enough to reach the rebel archers, knocking several men off their feet. Quickly now! Asuma pulled Sakura out of the water, and then Shino also climbed up to the surface along with Hinata. The young Hyuga then made a hand seal and detonated the tags. The whole bridge shook when the tags exploded, starting a chain reaction. Move! Asuma yelled. The section of the bridge collapsed, and the ninjas barely avoided getting hit by the falling pieces of stone. Luckily, the explosion drew all the attention away from them, allowing them to safely get out of the range of the rebel archers. Get her to the shore. You did well. Asuma handed Sakura back to Shino and ran up one of the support columns to get to the bridge. The explosion had cut off part of the rebel forces from their main army. This meant that those trapped between the feudal forces and the collapsed section now faced total annihilation. All the fighting actually stopped for a moment, and after a gruesome battle, silence raised over the battlefield. Shock, fear, and panic was beginning to show on the faces of the cut-off rebel troops. Heh! What is this? The rebels saw how smoke began to appear under their feet, spreading like some sort of a strange fog. Smells strange. This must be some other trick of those ninjas. Someone yelled in panic. Surprisingly, you are right. Sadly, that will not help you. Asuma pulled out his cigarette, looking over it curiously. Somehow everyone present was looking at him, waiting for his next move. Asuma raised his head after a second and then tossed the still-lit cigarette forward. The moment it touched the smoke, the area turned into a blazing inferno. Chapter 45. Kinhua was enraged. He fully understood that his forces fell into a trap that had cost him more casualties than the whole campaign so far. To make matters worse, the defeat demoralized the rebel forces, who were more used to easy victories and pillaging than actual heavy combat. Kinhua's command over them depended on his ability to provide them with riches and easy enough life. Facing a determined enemy who was willing to stand to the last man was not what most of the mercenaries signed up for. But worst of all were the shinobi. His men were terrified of having to face those deadly warriors again. They seemed unstoppable. I found incredible pleasure in watching your men getting sliced to bits. Quite a spectacle. You! Kinjo spun around, recognizing the rogue ninja who somehow appeared in his tent. How did you get here? I am a ninja. Getting past your would-be soldiers was about as easy as walking down the street. Last time I was merely polite. What do you want? It is not what I want, but what I can offer. I suspect that by now you wouldn't mind getting rid of those leaf ninjas, and once again I am willing to offer my services, but this time, the price is higher. You can guarantee that those ninjas will die? I can guarantee that those ninjas will stop bothering you one way or another. All you need to do is pay us. So, you want gold? Fine, I can provide that. Just do what you have to and don't dare cross me, or I will see you and your team of outcasts dead. An empty threat. The ninja laughed, and then disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving the rebel leader alone, hoping that he made the right choice. But right now he was getting desperate, and even though hiring rogue ninjas left a bad taste in his mouth, his choices were fairly limited. Naruto winced from the unpleasant sound as Sasuke kept sharpening his sword. The young Uchiha seemed perfectly content with it, but his teammate was reminded of an unpleasant sound when one slid his fingernails along the glass. Can you stop doing that? It is sharp already. No. Sasuke didn't look up, but instead slid the sharpening stone along the deadly blade. The feudal camp was silent as most soldiers were fast asleep after celebrating their victory. Not surprisingly, Toro simply stated that he would look out for trouble and basically disappeared in the shadows of the night. Asuma was with the commander of the feudal forces, who was very pleased with the performance of the ninja team, whose help saved many of his men. Finally done. Tenten resealed the last of her weapons into her scrolls. After the battle, she was forced to walk around the surface of the bridge to gather those, and since it was littered with numerous bodies, it wasn't a very pleasant experience. Also, some of her larger shuriken got stuck in the bodies of the dead rebels, and pulling them out was a disgusting procedure, often involving the need to further mutilate the bodies. Doesn't that noise annoy you? Naruto turned to the weapon mistress after turning towards Sasuke. No, not really. I do that all the time, so I am kind of used to it. We are back. Sakura skipped over to the fire, followed by Shino and Hinata. After their little swim in the river, they had to exchange clothes and leave the wet ones out to dry. Obviously, they all had spares, but neither Hinata nor Shino brought spares for their jacket or coat. I can't believe how many holes there is now. I might as well throw it out once we get back. Naruto held up his orange jacket. For the last 2 hours he was busy sewing up the numerous holes, and despite the seemingly hopeless goal, he did a very good job so far. Sakura was a bit surprised that Naruto knew how to sew, but then remembered that his was an orphan and for that reason had to know how to fix his clothes. Sure, his work wasn't very neat, but clearly would hold. Well, I sure won't cry for the thing. Maybe you will buy something that doesn't make you a target. Orange is awesome. Orange is too bright. Sakura frowned when Naruto once again began to defend his choice of clothing. You are the one to speak, you have pink hair. Naruto objected. I don't choose what my hair color is, what do you want me to do about it? Shave it off. Sasuke offered, and Sakura wasn't sure if he was kidding. Not the best idea, team. I won't be able to help but stare at her bald. Naruto smirked, getting back to work. Sasuke-kun, please, don't make such suggestions. Sakura shielded her hair as the Uchiha once more carefully slid the sharpening stone along the blade. HN. Your reply was not very informative, Shino stated. Don't worry, that was his whatever HN. Naruto replied. There are also the I don't care and I am going home kinds. You'd get used to that. Your team dynamics are complex. But isn't it nice that despite being so different they can get along? Hinata offered, stuttering slightly. Our cooperation is the key to our strength. We must be strong to succeed, Sasuke said, surprising some of those present. In the academy, the young Uchiha seemed to be more of a loner, but apparently he was more or less attached to his new teammates. I've learned that even the strongest ninjas have to rely on assistance to achieve their goals, as it provides far better chances for success than individual effort. I find your point of view logical and worth respect. Shino nodded. Sakura in the meantime was throwing glances at Hinata. Since the young Hyuga for once was missing her jacket, Sakura noticed that her figure was far more developed than her own. That made Sakura worry that Sasuke would notice that also, and who knew, maybe the Uchiha was into curvy girls, it was possible. At the same time, Sakura wondered why Hinata was wearing that oversized jacket most of the time, but perhaps it had something to do with the strict moral code of the Hyuga clan coupled with Hinata's natural shyness. Scatter! Toro suddenly appeared in the middle of the group, grabbing Hinata and Shino, before jumping away. Team 7 moved away on their own, already quite used to carrying out his orders without a second through, while Tenten had her reactions honed by training with Lee and Guy. Damn! Naruto flipped in mid-air when the blast wave caught up with him. Their camp was blasted to pieces when several kunai with explosive tags landed in the middle of their campfire. They avoided it. A tall muscle-covered man appeared, his bare torso showing off his impressive physique. Boom was loud, but enemies skip away. There was another, quite crazy-looking person who skipped on one leg while laughing. Then we can some fun. While Zin takes care of that, Jounin. 2 more people appeared, and by the looks of it they were related. If you think we are some pushovers, think again. Naruto snarled. He was pissed, especially considering that he spent hours working on his jacket that now was blown to bits. Oh, the kid has some spunk. I will crush you. The large man charged at Naruto, but was forced to go into a roll to avoid an arrow that nearly went through his neck. Are you going to shoot toothpicks at me in hopes of injuring me? Pathetic. A real warrior kills the enemy with his bare hands. I will show that to you when I grind your bones to dust with my fists. Toro didn't answer, instead retreating towards the tree line, luring the large man away. Obviously, he would have to take on that opponent in a one-on-one fight. Aburaim, Haruno, help me with the weirdo. Tenten commanded, being the one left in charge due to her rank. No offense, but Lee is weird too, so calling someone. Sakura began, but Tenten looked at her with a frown. Lee is passionate weird, and that thing is crazy weird. Yay, kill, blood will spill, bone will snap, Ramuzo will be glad. I see what you mean. Sakura's sweat dropped. Do we handle those too? Sasuke pointed at the lookalikes with his sword, with Naruto and Hinata flanking him. They knew that if Asuma was also attacked, it meant that the feudal army was concentrated on that one attack, and that meant that no help would come. For now they had to rely on their own abilities. Just stand there and take it. The powerful punch smashed into the tree trunk, easily taking out a good piece, but ultimately it completely missed the target. Toro ran up the tree and then kicked off the trunk, sailing through the air. HMPF. The large man leaned to the side to avoid another arrow, but when he looked up again, his target was nowhere in sight. Hiding? Is that your way of fighting? There was no answer, the darkness of night making the forested area into a playground for those who knew how to hide and move silently. Another arrow sailed through the air, but once again it was dodged. The tall man, despite his impressive bulk, was reasonably fast and had impressive reactions even when attacked from an uncomfortable angle. For what it seemed, he was a man who relied on pure physical strength, brute force, to take down his opponents. There was nothing elegant about such fighting methods, but they could be devastatingly effective. Of course, no amount of training could make you strong enough to replicate the effects of Tsunade's strength, but then again, her techniques were more based on chakra control, her ability to concentrate and release chakra accurately. That meant that in a prolonged fight Tsunade could eventually deplete her chakra, but this man was limited only to his stamina, which most would allow him to fight for days. This was not an opponent Toro could outlast. So, you want to hide, eh? Fine, let's see for how long will you be able to hide from me. Fire style, Seeker Flames. The tall man spat out over a dozen of small fireballs, but unlike any kind of fire attacks, these fireballs slowly sailed through the air, avoiding trees as they spread through the area. Their purpose was clear: they illuminated the area in order to help their creator find his target. This meant that even though the tall man was a taijutsu user, he was not beyond the use of ninjutsu to nullify the disadvantages of his fighting style. Apparently, he was also a fire element user. Fire could provide many offensive abilities, but it was fairly limited as a defense. Aha! Toro flipped from a branch when his opponent launched himself forward after noticing a glimpse of a shadow. There is no escaping me now! The flames now formed a wide circle around them, creating a zone of light that made hiding nearly impossible. Toro retreated, dodging a punch after a punch. The man clearly favored using his hands to attack. The archer quickly pulled his bow away, instead doing all he could to avoid getting hit. You are an elusive little insect. The man growled when his fist sank up to his elbow into the soft ground after Toro narrowly avoided getting hit. With a roar, the man pulled his hand out and charged again. The attacks seemed to repeat themselves until suddenly the man waved his hand and one of the fireballs launched towards Toro. Toro glanced at his slightly burned sleeve and the mild burn on the skin after he barely reacted to the unexpected attack. The fireball not only was launched at him, but it visibly changed its trajectory in order to hit the target, but instead slammed into a tree that instantly caught fire. Did you think those flames are just for show? Why so silent? Most usually either mock their opponents or beg for mercy. So what will it be? Once again Toro remained silent. He looked around. There was a total of 14 fireballs left. Not a number he was comfortable with. It wasn't an easy situation, but not a hopeless one. Toro tilted his head slightly and then suddenly moved towards his opponent, who immediately sent 2 more fireballs at him. One missed, but then turned around, moving after the target, while the second slammed into the ground, creating a circle of burning ground. Rag! The tall man swung his massive fist, aiming to strike Toro in the face, but the archer went into a slide, the strike passing inches away from his head. Damn! The man immediately formed a seal, putting out the fireball that was still sailing after Toro, and by the looks of it, it wasn't going to stop even if it meant burning its own creator. Unfortunately, all that effort meant that there was still 12 fireballs left, but Toro wasn't about to go around dancing like that. Huh! The tall man looked down, but before he understood what was going on, one of Toro's modified smoke bombs detonated right under his feet. The archer left it there as he slid past his opponent. Bastard! The man jumped out of the smoke, coughing and unable to see clearly. He would not be able to actively attack in this state, so with an angry roar he sent all the remaining fireballs at Toro, who spun around and went running away, jumping from side to side in order to avoid becoming a pile of freshly cooked meat. His opponent followed, but he was busy rubbing his eyes to regain his sight, as all he could see right now was blurry images and lights moving away. Toro jumped to the side, rolled forward and jumped towards a tree only to kick away from it. The fireballs made him use all of his abilities to avoid getting hit. Several times he felt the scorching heat as the fireballs passed close enough to slightly burn his clothes. Where is he going? The tall man moved forward in order to not lose his target until he saw something glimmering in the distance. With some surprise he understood that the archer lured him all the way to the river, and by the time he got to the shore the archer was already running on its calm surface with fireballs nearly upon him. Yes, just a little more. Huh! Toro suddenly released the chakra and instantly disappeared under the surface of the water, with fireballs harmlessly sailing over his head. The tall man raised his hands, commanding his creations not to follow. If this was some pathetic idea to extinguish the fireballs by luring them to the water, then that plan obviously failed. All that had to be done right now is wait until the lack of oxygen would force the archer to resurface. The fire illuminated the surface of the river, so getting out of the water unseen would be impossible. The tall man allowed himself a small smirk despite the burning in his eyes and throat. Without any doubt he had already won. His smile was wiped off though, when the surface of the water suddenly exploded from some kind of large detonation under the surface. The created blast of water easily wiped out the fireball, while the created wave knocked the tall man over after reaching the shore. Toro climbed out to the shore coughing out water after getting slammed into the bottom of the river by the blast wave. It took half of his supply of explosive tags to create a blast he was sure would wipe out his little fire problem. Still, hiding and using the stealth approach was a tactic Toro could no longer employ, as that would mean the risk of facing the same jutsu again. Instead, quickly rushed towards his opponent, who was getting up. Little pest. Fire style seeker. HMPPF? Toro's hand grabbed the fingers, not slowing the man to finish the hand seals for the jutsu. Without another word, Toro simply headbutted his foe, the impact sending them both stumbling back. The blow broke the skin on Toro's forehead, but by the looks of it that was all the damage he had suffered. Since his opponent was taller, the strike caught him in the mouth, and now the tall man had to spit out blood along with a piece of his own tooth. How dare you! I am Zukuru the Skull Crasher. I will break you, destroy you. I will make sure they won't even be able to identify you. Zukuru attacked with fury, his punch fueled by the anger and pain. His attacks once more forced his foe to retreat, but finally Zukuru found an opening, slamming Toro's hands away. With a triumphant yell, his large palms wrapped around Toro's head and began to squeeze. I will watch your brains start pouring out of your ears until your skull explodes. Zukuru saw Toro grab his wrists in a seemingly useless attempt to save himself. But then the tall man noticed that despite all his effort he wasn't getting anywhere. His opponent, as it seemed, wasn't even in pain. How was he supposed to know that Toro's skull, just like the rest of his skeleton, was made up of bones that could withstand incredible amounts of force without breaking? Ag! Zukuru screamed in pain when two bone spikes pierced both his wrists, forcing him to let go of his foe. What? What is this? His question remained without answer, but he had the pleasure of watching how to puncture wounds in Toro's palms sealed up right before his eyes. Terror appeared in Zukuru's eyes as he stumbled back and then began to run. For the time being it seemed as if his opponent wasn't following, but then an arrow hit the retreating man in his thigh, forcing him to turn around, only to witness another arrow coming, hitting him in the eye and coming out from the back of the head. For a few seconds the already dead man kept standing, but then fell down and rolled over towards the water. Too much talking. Toro massaged his scalp and then ran off back towards the forest. Chapter 46. Be careful, we have no idea who are we facing and what that weirdo is capable of. Tenten carefully pulled out one of her scrolls, not taking her eyes off their strange opponent, who at the moment was playfully skipping on one leg and laughing as a child, half expecting to get a new toy. Let's see if I will be able to reveal some of the abilities. Shino raised his hands and his bugs began to rise into the air, crawling out of his sleeves. Oh. Fun, fun! Ramuzo like! The weird ninja skipped out of the way, avoiding a cloud of bug, and soon was avoiding wave after a wave of insects while laughing. It seemed that she didn't even feel threatened by the attacks, but one thing was evident, that seemingly insane person had incredible speed and agility to move like that. Furthermore, her movements seemed unpredictable, irrational, yet somehow very effective. I can't catch her. Shino stated, his expression as unreadable as always. Despite his best efforts, he simply couldn't pin down his opponent. Not only were her moves unorthodox, she was also constantly shifting the rhythm of her moves. Let's see her dodge these. Tenten unsealed 3 large shuriken and hurled those at the opponent. Yes, spin! Ramuzo leaned to the side, avoiding the first shuriken, flipped over the second one, and snatched the third one out of mid-air. Make them bleed! It seemed that Sakura didn't react when the giant shuriken sailed right towards her, but the moment she was hit, she was replaced by a piece of wood that was cleanly cut in half, a clear proof of the devastating power of the weapon. Very fast reaction time. Sakura appeared behind Tenten after her narrow escape. We need to get her disoriented in order for any of our attacks to succeed, Tenten said. Sakura, can you do something about that? I'll try. Give me a moment. I am not sure we have a moment. Shino frowned. The enemy rolled under a wave of his bugs and jumped forward, covering the remaining distance in one leap. Shino began pulling back, but before he understood what happened, Ramuzo grabbed the collar of his coat and threw him away. She did it without showing any strain, but when Shino landed he exploded in a cloud of insects, proving to be a bug clone. Sneaky! Ramuzo dodged a barrage of kunai from Tenten, while a huge wave of insects was going after her. She then jumped up, flipping in mid-air and flashed through several seals. Ninja art, toxic breath! A stream of dark green gas covered the area between Ramuzo and Shino, and a moment later his bags began falling down dead, covering the ground. What? Shino took a careful step back. He had just lost 1/3 of his hive. Considering the fighting style, it was unusual for them to lose substantial amounts of their uncommon fighting partners. Furthermore, it would now take time for his colony to recover from such losses. A little ninja sad? Ramuzo laughed, and suddenly jumped forward again. Shino received a kick to his chest that sent him rolling on the ground. Time to bleed. Ramuzo pulled out a kunai. Then bleed yourself. Sakura slid on the ground, knocking Ramuzo over, but the crazy ninja easily jumped up, aiming a slash at Sakura's throat. To her surprise, the pink-haired kunoichi managed to dodge the strike, grab her opponent's wrist and twist it, pulling the blade away. Sakura, get away! Tenten released a barrage of shuriken from one of her scrolls. No, you stay. Ramuzo didn't allow Sakura to jump away, instead easily ripping her hand out of Sakura's grip and pulling the girl forward, using her as a human shield. GHMPPF! Sakura gasped when her chest got filled with shuriken. Oh yes, bleed! Ramuzo laughed. Blood will flow and… GHHH! Ramuzo's head shot back when it met with an elbow. Yeah, about bleeding, not today. Sakura turned around, the shuriken harmlessly falling to the ground without any sign of wounds. Even Sakura's dress wasn't torn, and for the first time Ramuzo's face shows something that could be described as surprise. She still reacted when Sakura attacked, blocking 2 kicks and a punch, and then ducked under a strike. The kunai sailed in a wide arc and Sakura stumbled back when the blade sliced right through her neck. Not working. Sakura shook her head, not a wound visible on her flesh. Why you not bleed? I want to hear you scream. Ramuzo wasn't allowed to finish when a solid metal staff sailed over her head. Oh, shut up! Tenten swirled her weapon around and knocked that kunai out of Ramuzo's hand. Ag! The crazy ninja stumbled back when a cloud of insects began to swirl around her head, blocking her view. Ramuzo waved her hands and then doubled over when Tenten rammed her staff into her gut. Raf! Ramuzo blindly pounced in the general direction of her opponent, but missed, instead receiving a blow to the back of her head. Ninja art! Toxic breath! Ramuzo covered herself with the poisonous smoke, forcing Tenten to jump away in order to avoid inhaling the potentially lethal gas. Think she killed herself? Sakura approached looking a bit tired. Her genjutsu allowed her to trick Ramuzo for a short while. When Ramuzo, though Sakura was hit, actually she was completely unharmed, instead using the opportunities to confuse her opponents and observe her. Unfortunately, she had to constantly adapt that genjutsu to the constantly shifting situation in battle. That meant that every time something had to be changed, the genjutsu took a portion out of her reserves. I don't know, I hope so, that ninja creeps me out. Tenten sealed up her staff, looking into the thick dark green smoke, trying to see what was going on inside. I think I saw something when I knocked a kunai out of her hand. You noticed? Yeah, puncture wounds from a needle, but not from Saban. Sakura agreed. Right. I can confirm that. My bugs managed to bite her several times and sample her chakra. It seemed unnaturally potent, Shino said, while several dozen of his insects were flying around the gas cloud. Smart, little ninjas. Ramuzo slowly walked out of the cloud, but something was different. Even though she looked as maniacal as before, she wasn't constantly skipped, instead she seemed almost calm. Fighting you is fun, but I don't like pain, so you I shall kill. Ramuzo reached for something in her pouch and pulled out a syringe filled with some kind of light blue substance. She is using drug of some sort, Sakura realized. That is why she is so fast and strong. And that is why you will all die. Ramuzo shivered as she gave herself a shot, and a moment later she launched forward. If anything, she was even faster than before, and Sakura was the first to feel it, as despite blocking the kick, she was still launched back. Die! Ramuzo threw a handful of senbons at the prone kunoichi, but before they reached her, all were knocked out by a barrage of shuriken from Tenten, who then jumped into the air, unsealing a large variety of weapons that she began to throw at Ramuzo. But despite her best efforts, the crazed ninja kept dodging, dancing and jumping without getting even a cut. Ramuzo felt something shift under her foot, and before she knew it, she was flipped onto her back, but a group of Shino's bugs, hiding in the grass. Ramuzo rolled to the side, avoiding a javelin, but then a kunai caught her in the shoulder, followed by 2 shuriken in the thigh, before she finally managed to jump away. Her Saban poison. Sakura sniffed the needles that had nearly hit her. Most likely the same kind she uses in her jutsu, just this one is in liquid form. Then how come she herself is affected? Tenten asked, watching how Rimuzo pulled out a kunai without showing any sign of pain. Two possibilities. Shino frowned. Either her drug contains the antidote, or she had built up tolerance for the stuff. I also think we can safely assume that the effects of that drug are temporary, most likely linked to the amount of chakra she uses. It somehow intensifies the chakra flow and makes chakra more potent. She uses that to boost her physical performance. She is sick. Sakura nodded. That doesn't make our job any easier. We can't outlast her. We have no idea how many more doses of that stuff she has on herself. Tenten shook her head. Scared kids? You don't know how to handle power? Rimuzo chuckled and then laughed. Your power is fake, Shino stated. Power is power, it is good. I don't care where it comes from. I just want to have fun. Rimuzo laughed loudly despite bleeding from her wounds. And you three are very, very fun. Sakura, try to give me another opening. Shino, make sure she doesn't get to Sakura. Tenten ordered, while pulling out a handful of kunai. Come. Rimuzo waved, taunting Tenten, who immediately threw her weapons. The crazed ninja dropped down, avoiding them easily, and then pushed off the ground with all her limbs, propelling herself high into the air. Ag! Rimuzo was forced to close her eyes when bright light blinded her. For a second she wondered where it came from, but realized it was another genjutsu. If anything, the pink-haired girl was good at making things difficult, as one couldn't fight as effectively as he usually did when he couldn't trust his senses. Release! The light disappeared, but when it did, Rimuzo found herself in mid-air with several large shuriken coming her way, each large enough to cleave her in half. There is no escaping that. Tenten smirked, but before her eyes Rimuzo disappeared in a puff of smoke. Substitution, Shino explained when he saw Tenten's weapon slice up a log. Right. Rimuzo appeared from behind Shino, who rolled forward on pure reflex, avoiding the strike, but Rimuzo quickly moved forward, grabbing his coat and pinning him to the ground. Off of him! Sakura's kick connected with Rimuzo's hand, making the crazy ninja let go of Shino, who rolled to the side. No tricking me now. Rimuzo pushed Sakura away. Release! Sakura felt how the genjutsu she had cast on herself, and which she used so effectively before, now disappeared. Her opponent acted like some maniac, but without a doubt she could analyze the situation and the fighting style of her opponents. Along with enchanted strength and speed, this made her an even more dangerous opponent. Damn! Sakura retreated under a barrage of strikes until Tenten came wielding her staff again. With a snarl, Tenten swung her weapon, but Rimuzo simply lifted her hand, blocking the strike that should have caused her immense pain. Instead, with a laugh, she grabbed the weapon, yanking it out of Tenten's grip and throwing it away. Fight, make fun, go on! Rimuzo smiled wickedly and attacked again, her spend and strength enough to push back both girls without too much effort. Sakura already thanked those brutal training sessions with Toro, as she had avoided quite a few strikes that would have easily cost her a broken bone or worse. HMPF. Rimuzo grunted slightly as she caught both Sakura's and Tenten's kicks. With another laugh, she swung both girls around and slammed them together. How fun! Rimuzo skipped from side to side and then leaned, avoiding a single kunai thrown at her by Shino. No bugs? Rimuzo looked amused when Shino charged her, but her expression changed when he raised his hand just as he was about to reach her. My bugs have various purposes, Shino stated, and his opponent finally saw how a large group of insects dropped Tenten's staff right into his hand. Shino wasn't used to this weapon, but the element of surprise was on his side. Even the young Aburame had to admit he licked the sound when the other end of the heavy weapon smashed into Rimuzo's jaw. The crazy rogue nin stumbled back, spitting out blood along with a few broken teeth. Still, despite such a blow, she ducked under another strike and struck. Her fist seemed to pierce the young Aburame, proving him to be yet another bug clone. As I said, my bugs have various purposes. As a member of the Aburame clan, I have to learn to use them creatively. Shino appeared behind his opponent, while the clone grabbed her hand, not allowing her to use any jutsu, especially the one that created poisonous gas. They will now suck you dry of any chakra. They will choke. Rimuzo used her free hand to reach into her pouch and pull out another syringe. With a maniacal scream, she gave herself another shot just as Shino's bugs began to cover her. For a moment it seemed like it was all over, but unfortunately it wasn't. The young Aburame was blown off his feet while his bugs were scattered. Rimuzo now emitted enough chakra for it to be visible, while the veins all over her body bulged. She gave herself another dose. She will be even stronger now. Tenten got up with the ground. But look, that clearly strains her body, Sakura said as Rimuzo howled, clearly being in pain. It was a strange mix of maniacal laughter and pain-filled screams that now sailed through the air. Rimuzzo took a step forward, no longer speaking in her unusual way, but her target was clear. She was about to attack. A plan? Sakura asked. I don't kn. Tenten was blown off her feet before she could even say anything. Rimuzzo moved so fast she was but a blur. She picked up Tenten and bent it, breaking the bones. She then lifted the weapon mistress and slammed her into the ground several times. Tenten! Sakura rushed to help, but Rimuzzo immediately switched her attention and pounced, knocking the girl to the ground hard. Shino didn't even have a chance to do anything before Sakura slammed into him after getting tossed by the enraged Rimuzzo. I feel pain, but yours will stop soon, because you will die. Rimuzzo moved towards Shino and Sakura, both of whom were on the ground, dazed. Hey, forget me? Rimuzzo turned around when she heard Tenten from behind. The weapon mistress didn't look good. One of her hands was hanging limp, bruises covering her face and her hair no longer being styles in the usual two buns on her head. But she was standing, and that meant that she wasn't yet defeated. What, can't finish the job? Brave, but stupid. Rimuzzo moved towards the helpless Kunoichi and grabbed her by the neck, lifting off the ground. Said bye-bye? Bye. Tenten smirked, and with whatever strength she could muster rammed something into Rimuzzo's chest with her only working hand. No! Rimuzzo stumbled back, recognizing one of her syringes. What have you done? The effects were clear. The crazy ninja fell to the ground screaming in agony as her body began emitting so much chakra that the grass under her got burned away. She howled, unable to speak as he body trashed. It was a horrible sight, especially when Rimuzzo began to bleed out of her eyes and ears, her body unable to handle the increased blood pressure. Finally her back arched, releasing a final pulse of chakra, and the crazy Kunoichi slumped down limply. Tenten, you alright? Sakura rushed to her friend, while Shino carefully made sure that Rimuzzo was dead. It didn't take an expert to confirm it. Tenten opened her mouth, but then simply fell face down. Tenten! Carefully, we don't know if she suffered any internal injuries. Shino approached, carefully turning Tenten over and checking if her life signs were stable. Fortunately, Tenten was breathing steadily, and most likely it was fortunate that she passed out, judging by the nasty break she suffered. Is that freak dead? Yes. It seems her body was unable to withstand the overdose of that drug she used. I wonder if her mental state was caused by the constant use of that substance. I don't care right now, let's get Tenten to a safe place and go see if others need help. I agree. I'll carry her. Thanks. Careful with her hand. Don't worry, I will try not to aggravate her injuries. Sakura-san, please take the remaining syringes with the drug from the corpse of our opponent. I suspect it will have to be analyzed back at the village. It had very unusual properties. I'd rather not think about its properties if it can make a person into a maniac. Since it grants energy, perhaps that is the reason for a level of hyperactivity? Shino, take Tenten. This is not the time for scientific theories. Our first priority is to take care of our injured friend. Yes, you are right, excuse me. It is just that such matters occasionally intrigue me and… What was that? Sakura looked in the direction of the river. Sounded like a detonation of significant magnitude. Must be Toro. We have to go check it out once we help Tenten. Let's go. Sakura ripped the pouch off Rimuzzo's belt and followed the young Aburame. Chapter 47. This is so disappointing. That we have to fight these brats. The two very similar shinobi looked over their opponents and clearly were not impressed. One couldn't really blame them. One was a timid-looking girl, the other looked like a color-blind idiot. The third, despite wielding a sword, also didn't seem like much. Underestimating your foes is the worst mistake a shinobi can make. Sasuke raised his sword, preparing for the fight to begin. Oh, a brat speaks. Yet makes little sense. Let's kill him, brother. I agree. The male stepped forward, bringing down his scimitar in a wide slash that would have cleaved Sasuke in half, but the young Uchiha moved back just enough to avoid the blow and lashed out with his own strike. Metal met metal, producing sparks as Sasuke's blades slid along that of his opponent. Shadow Clone Jutsu! Naruto sent several copies at the female, who with a smirk waited for them to come while swirling her long narrow sword. Her first strike seemed to come out of nowhere, reducing a clone to several wisps of harmless smoke, and then she moved forward. Her weapon not stopped the graceful, yet deadly dance around her. Most of the clones were wiped out in the matter of seconds, and the deadly rogue ninja made her way towards the surprised Naruto. Silly little ninja! Her sword pierced the target, but Naruto again disappeared, but this time got replaced with a relatively large piece of wood, with the sword getting stuck in it. Go, Hinata! Naruto dropped from above, forcing the female to block with her only free hand. With a scowl, the female pushed the genin away and came face to face with the timid girl. Byakugan! Hinata activated the prized bloodline of her clan, giving her a very intimidating look. Damn it! The female kunoichi stumbled back after receiving a glancing blow to her arm, and then swung her sword with a piece of wood still impaled upon it. Hinata barely avoided a blow, never expecting her opponent to so effortlessly swing around such weight. The Byakugan provided Hinata with an ability to see nearly everything around her without the need to actually turn her head, and that gave the girl the needed moment to roll away when her foe brought down the sword. The impact against the ground was strong enough to shatter the wood, freeing up the sword. She looked around and to her great annoyance saw that she was once more surrounded by over a dozen of identical orange ninjas. She looked to the side and saw that her brother was still engaged in a bitter duel with his young opponent, who despite their difference in age and experience was effectively avoiding the deadly slash. Sasuke ducked under another slash, feeling how the dangerous blade moved through the air above his head. His own sword moved fast, a slash aimed for his opponent's unprotected stomach, but it was blocked when the opposing ninja had put his large sword in a reverse grip. With a satisfied smirk, the older ninja struck with his fist, throwing Sasuke back, but before the Uchiha landed, he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Dance of the Crescent Moon! Sasuke appeared from behind and there was no stopping him, but before his blow connected, it was blocked by the female ninja, who in one swift motion scattered Naruto's clones that were about to attack her. Thanks, Mio, he is not as simple as I expected. The swordsman placed his scimitar on his shoulder, while his sister pushed Sasuke away. That is a very interesting technique he used. I remember seeing one of Konoha ninjas using it once a few years ago. Never thought someone like you could have mastered something as advanced. Tisk. Sasuke didn't comment, instead looking over the female. She reacted quite quickly in order to protect her brother. Almost too quickly. Hinata, have you noticed anything? Sasuke called out. Their chakra, it feels completely the same, and there is similar abnormal chakra activity around their brains. I don't know what it means. Hinata observed the duo through her bloodline. Same chakra? Naruto glanced at the girl in confusion. All ninjas have various chakra capacity and different potency of their chakra. That allows special sensory-type ninja to locate and even distinguish between individual ninjas over great distances, merely by sensing their chakra signatures. From what I understand, for a sensory ninja, these two would be identical. Sasuke frowned. Should have figured a Hyuga would have spotted something. The female spoke with a slightly amused tone. For a buck of brats you are quite sharp. I am Myo and I am Kyu. The male finished. We are twins. Kind of suspected that one already. Naruto pointed out. That does not explain anything. Even identical twins don't have identical chakra signatures. For that to happen, your chakra network must develop as a single system from day one and… I see. Sasuke's eyes betrayed interest. You see? See what? Naruto demanded. They are not just any twins. For a period in their lives, they were Siamese twins. They were once one organism. How clever. Mio narrowed her eyes. I would applaud you, but that would be a waste of energy. Enough playing with them, brother. Let's go. It was one thing fighting these ninja when they fought separately, but it was an entirely different matter when they began to fight together, demonstrating a level of cooperation that seemed almost impossible for a human being. Sasuke, even with his activated Sharingan, managed to block only several strikes before receiving a cut on his shoulder and rough kick to the chin that threw him back with blood streaming from his mouth. Fire style, fireball jutsu! A huge ball of flame flew between Sasuke and the advancing foes. It wasn't meant to hit anyone, but it did give Sasuke enough time to at least get up and jump over to his comrades. I can see their moves, but can't react. The strikes seem to rain from every possible angle. Sasuke wiped the blood off his chin. Their moves seem to be coordinated somehow, but I haven't seen them speak or interact in any way. Great, thanks team, we have no idea how they are doing that, got it? Naruto ranted. Multi-shadow clone jutsu! The whole area was filled with Naruto's copies, creating enough targets and buying enough time for the Leaf Genin to figure something out. Even the rogue ninja seemed slightly surprised by the amount of clones Naruto created and for a while had to go defensive in order to thin out the horde of blonde ninjas that attacked them. The clones were of course unable to demonstrate the same level of cooperation as the twins, but still they were to a degree an extension of one mind, and what they lacked in skill they could partially compensate in numbers and the sheer volume of attacks. The clones also proved capable of performing the only fire-based ninjutsu in Naruto's arsenal. My clones won't last forever! Naruto yelled. He kept creating clones, But even his enormous chakra reserves were not going to last long at this rate. They needed a plan. That chakra activity in their heads. It has to be the key. It was the only sign of any kind of jutsu being performed. Hinata guessed. In a way it seemed similar to the mind transfer technique used by Ino-san during the Chunin Exams. Are you saying they are reading each other's thoughts? Sasuke asked. I don't know, but perhaps the identical chakra allows such a feat to be performed. I mean, nobody ever studied such a thing. Whatever, how do we stop it? Naruto sent another squad of clones into battle only to watch them get annihilated. She is a Hyuga. If that technique, whatever it is based on chakra, it means she can disrupt it with her taijutsu style. Sasuke looked at Hinata. Let's go, Dobe, we have to give her an opening. Right, we are counting on you, Hinata. Naruto smiled at her, and then ran towards their opponents. Decided to finally face us. The twins spoke, the male finishing the line for his sister. His large curved sword made Naruto lean back to avoid it getting decapitated. Sasuke! Got it! The Uchiha grabbed Naruto's stretched hand and the blonde swung him around. Sasuke kicked away the female ninja's weapon and lashed out with a strike that nearly hit her face, instead slicing off some of her hair. When Sasuke landed, her swung Naruto around, tossing his teammate into the air. Sasuke blocked an overhead slash from the male twin, but the blow was so powerful that the young Uchiha was forced to drop down to one knee. Got you now! The female struck, but to her surprise Sasuke managed to pull out a kunai with his free hand and push the blade away, getting only a mild cut on his leg. You forget I can see your moves! Sasuke glared at his opponents through his Sharingan. If anything, the sight of the famous bloodline was a fearsome picture. Rasengan! Naruto dropped from the air just as Sasuke used the moment to jump away. The twins managed to move away from a direct strike, but when Naruto's jutsu struck the ground, it resulted in an enormous output of chakra when the highly compressed chakra was finally released. The twins were blasted off their feet and thrown in separate directions. Damn, that hurt! Naruto glanced at the chakra burn on his hand, but didn't give it another thought while sliding on the ground. He pulled out 2 of the modified smoke bombs, and a moment later a thick veil of poisonous smoke separated the twins. From Toro they knew that they had a few minutes before the smoke would disappear. That was the opening they aimed for. Hinata, go for the kunoichi! Sasuke jumped towards the male twin, once more engaging him in a bitter duel. Without his female partner to back him up, the rogue ninja seemed to be evenly matched with Sasuke, who just made sure to prevent him from going to help his sister. Sasuke's katana was smaller, lighter, but it was a weapon that could cut through flesh like through air. The large weapon of his opponent granted him a superior reach, but the broad curved blade was not meant for piercing attacks. Its slash were devastating, but Sasuke could answer with fast stabbing attacks that often were dangerous enough to force the male twin to move back. Sasuke also realized his other advantage. His weapon was lighter and much more balanced. His opponent would run out of energy far quicker. That was most likely the reason why his sister used a much faster weapon. Their fighting style when put together created a nearly unstoppable combination of speed and power. But when one element was taken away, it was a completely different story. Juken! Hinata didn't hesitate as she relentlessly attacked her foe. Perhaps the female ninja was armed, but she was also slightly dazed after getting blasted away by the blast from Naruto's Rasengan. Hinata also began with a blow to the female ninja's leg, slowing her down. You! The female rogue ninja finally showed anger as she swung her long narrow blade, but the young Hyuga twisted her body avoiding the strike, and the next moment the female twin stumbled back holding her shoulder. Hinata scored a solid blow, and her opponent fully realized how painful the Juken blow was and how much damage it could, despite that damage often being invisible to the naked eye. But Hinata wasn't done yet. She had a clear target. She clearly saw the strange chakra activity in several chakra points in the woman's head, but seeing them and actually hitting them was a completely different task. Only once, when facing Neji, did Hinata feel like this. It was the thrill of a mortal battle. It left no room for mistakes. It was no game. It wasn't training. It wasn't a battle you could lose and hope to stay alive. At least when fighting Neji during the preliminaries she could hope for help or for mercy, but here it was even more intense. There wasn't even time to think. Instead, one relied on his experience and his instincts, avoiding the strikes, blocking them, dodging, creating an opening at attacking yourself. One could describe this as a dance of death. It could be beautiful, but it was deadly, and everybody knew that. When two people fought, demonstrating all of their skill, it left them oblivious to everything around. There was you and your enemy in front of you. Nothing else mattered. Hinata didn't know if she enjoyed this feeling, but she surely wasn't afraid of it, or disgusted by it. She was a ninja. It was in her blood, in her soul. This was a battle between ninjas, and only another ninja could understand what was going in the hearts of the combatants. Brats should know when to stop. The female rogue ninja stepped to the side, avoiding a palm strike, and swirled her weapon until she struck, aiming to pierce Hinata's throat. Hell no! Naruto appeared, grabbing her hand and pulling the sword away. He then kicked the female ninja under her knee, forcing her to drop down with a pained moan. You runt! The kunoichi ripped her hand out of Naruto's grip, slamming the hilt of her weapon into Naruto's face, throwing him back. But the next moment her head exploded in pain. Hinata finally struck and then repeated the attack several times, partially sealing up the chakra flow in the needed area. Ag! The female twin swung her sword blindly and moved back in agony. Suddenly, through the pain, she realized something that never happened to her before. Kyu? I can't. What have you done? Hinata moved back when, despite the pain, her opponent attacked. Her moves were now fueled by rage and pain. It was difficult to defend against her attacks, as the Jukin never utilized any weapons. True, the hands of a trained Hyuga could potentially be as deadly as any weapon, but it never meant that flesh could go against metal with any hope of emerging on the winning side. Hinata's natural agility, her incomplete fighting style, was what allowed her to survive the initial clash. But there was no chance she would be able to hold her own for long. Ag! The Hyuga dodged a strike from a sword, but instead received a kick to the chest that knocked her over. I was still too weak. Hinata closed her eyes, allowing the Byakugan to disappear as she saw how her foe raised the weapon for a final blow. There was no hesitation, no mercy. Hinata only hoped there would also be no pain, and to her surprise there wasn't. Some dripped onto Hinata's cheek, something warm. She didn't know what happened, but there was only one thing she could do to find out. She carefully opened her eyes, not knowing what she would see. The first thing she noticed was the tip of the sword, just a few inches away from her face. She noticed the red liquid dripping down. It rolled down the narrow blade that was sticking out of something orange. And Naruto? Hinata looked up, realizing that Naruto had shielded her. He was now standing over her with the blade rammed into his back all the way to the hilt. Naruto, Please! Don't! Hate me! I don't! Your eyes strange, I never noticed. Before that they never had that cold hatred in them. Naruto coughed out blow when the female ninja twisted the blade in order to pull it out, but Naruto grabbed the weapon with his bare hands, keeping it trapped within his body. For what? You will see. And feel. Don't hate me. Hinata could only nod. She had no clue, no idea what Naruto was talking about. He was injured, he could die, what on earth he could do to make her hate him? His blood was dripping on her, he was. Hinata's trail of thought stopped suddenly when she felt something she couldn't even describe. Naruto was still standing over her, holding the blade of the sword, his eyes closed. But something was changing, something new appeared, it grew, and the feeling was getting stronger by the second. Hinata never felt anything she could even compare this feeling to. It was beyond that of a human. Without even thinking, Hinata activated her Byakugan. Strange reddish chakra began to fill Naruto's system. It wasn't a usual gentle flow of chakra, it was a violent stream of powerful energy. It was like when Naruto was fighting Neji, but only now Hinata realized the terror her cousin faced. Hinata pressed herself into the ground, she was struggling to breath, her heart was beating like crazy, but somehow she knew that the aura of rage Naruto was now emitting was not directed at her. Her Byakugan revealed that the female ninja behind Naruto was visibly trembling while desperately trying to pull out her weapon. A low growl escaped from Naruto's throat. His hands moved ever so slightly, but the metal weapon in his chest was snapped like a twig. The female ninja stumbled back, looking in disbelief at what remained of her weapon. Before she could even say anything, a pulse of chakra threw her back like some toy. Hinata felt incapable of moving as she saw how a horrible wound in Naruto's chest began to heal so quickly that without a doubt it would disappear in a matter of seconds. But what truly shocked the girl was Naruto's eyes when he finally opened them. The usual warm, kind blue orbs were gone. Naruto's eyes were now red. Chapter 48. Is fear a good feeling? At first glance the question seems quite silly, but if you think about it, it becomes harder to answer that question. Without a doubt it is not a pleasant feeling, but there are many things we do not like, but we still admit that they are necessary. Like taking foul-tasting medicine when you are sick. We don't like, but we do it. The same is with fear, only in this case we have no choice in the matter. Fear protects us, warns about dangers, but if allowed to grow out of control it can become a very bad advisor. Only when one can control his fear, overcome it, can he truly make choices in his life. Hinata had many fears. She feared becoming a failure, feared her family, her clan turning away from her. She knew those fears, but she learned to work against them. But never in her life did she feel such utter terror. Naruto stood over her like an image from a nightmare. She didn't even notice how she activated her Byakugan and now was looking at the young ninja whose chakra system was flooded by dark orange violent energy. There was so much of it that it actually was visible even to those not blessed with an ocular bloodline, but to Hinata it looked like Naruto was enveloped in a shroud of this orange energy she couldn't even call chakra. No human could this kind of chakra, no human could control, yet despite the violent flow and menacing aura, Naruto was clearly manipulating the flow of chakra in his body. The horrible wound in Naruto's torso all but sealed in a matter of seconds, with only the torn and soaked with blood clothes telling about the injury that was there just a moment ago. Naruto tilted his head, a low growl escaping his throat, and when Hinata heard that sound something snapped. She finally remembered to breathe and loudly filled her lungs with air, the unwelcome scent of fresh blood invading her system. It was the blood of the one that not so long ago took a blow for her. Naruto moved so fast Hinata could barely see. He was still holding the broken blade of his opponent's sword and now he hurled it at the shocked Kunoichi, who tried to dodge. She was somewhat successful, avoiding a direct hit, the blade instead scoring a glancing blow against her side, but the force was nearly enough to tear out a piece of her flesh, instead leaving a long deep cut. "Sister!" Sasuke was pushed back after blocking a reckless, but powerful blow. The Uchiha moved back slightly, expecting his foe to proceed with another attack, but instead saw how the older ninja leaped towards Naruto. In midair the ninja raised his sword, ready to cleave the blonde genin in half. He felt that strange aura, but acted more on instinct. He was getting closer and closer. Another second, another moment, and he would cut down that threat that dared injure his sister. Just a little more, but it was not to come. Naruto's attention snapped towards the ninja and the sight of those red eyes made every muscle in the body freeze. That was the gaze of someone who could kill without mercy. Without any hesitation, Naruto suddenly released a roar, creating a wave of energy that met his airborne opponent. It felt like hitting a moving stone wall. Naruto turned back to the Kunoichi, who had just witnessed her brother getting blown away like some annoying pest. Her bother flew through air, spinning until her crashed quite some distance away. "Who are you?" "I am..." Naruto didn't finish as he blurred out of sight, appearing right in front of his target, planting his fist into her gut with a force that made her double over and exhale whatever air she had in her lungs. "Uzumaki Naruto, and you..." Naruto's foot connected with his foe's chin, blasting her away. "Tried to kill my friend. Really now?" The injured Kunoichi pulled herself up, still fighting off the effects of the fearsome aura. How could a simple genin produce such suffocating, almost animalistic killer intent was beyond her. Then again, he clearly was not just any genin. "This is how the world goes, kid. We ninjas fight and kill each other. You have killed before, I know. That is just how things are meant to be. Violence rules our lives." "Violence? That is all you are good for, hurting others? I hate that." Naruto shot forward again. He brutally overpowered the Kunoichi, slamming right through her block and ramming his shoulder into her chest. With a pained moan she stumbled back, but Naruto immediately pounced her, smashing her into the ground with impressive force. She felt how he picked her up and threw her towards the trees of a nearby forest, in the same direction Tora left after luring away his opponent. "Violence is who we are," she spoke, trying to get up. "We kill to live. That is not the way of a ninja, not my way of a ninja. I fight only to protect my village and those dear to me." Naruto released another roar and the female twin was blasted against a nearby tree. She slid down, her whole body battered to a point where she was completely unable to move. "You live in the world of your illusions." The female ninja shook her head, watching Naruto advance, rage clear on his face, the horrific reddish aura around him and the suffocating aura clutching her heart. "This world has long since sunk in the darkness." "Then why?" Naruto flipped to the side, avoiding a slash. Kyu slid on the ground, ending up in front of his sister. His said nothing, but it was clear that Naruto would have to move through him to get to her. "If there's only darkness, why is your brother protecting you like that?" Naruto growled. "He doesn't know when to step away." Mio managed to pull herself up to her knees. "Kyu, move aside. We were born together, we will die together. I am not afraid of that monster." "Monster?" Naruto's face betrayed pain. By a moment later the intense fearsome aura only intensified as he prepared to charge forward, feeling how his body was burning with energy he barely kept in check. It demanded him to use it, its purpose was destruction. "Monsters can't show mercy." A soft voice seemed out of place. Hinata walked from behind, standing up next to Naruto, who glanced at her with his dark red eyes. "Monsters can't sacrifice themselves for others. Monsters can't say they are sorry. Don't dare call Naruto a monster!" Hinata's Byakugan came to life. I have to second that. Sasuke appeared on Naruto's other side while holding his katana on his shoulder. I am also not happy that you insulted my friend even if he is a complete idiot. You see, in this world of darkness, friends are the only source of light I have left. Isn't that the reason you are risking your life for your sister? Don't come closer! Ki yelled, determined to hold his ground. Enough, brother. Shut up, I said I am not leaving you. Then take her and get out of here, Naruto said suddenly. Huh? Just like that? I nearly killed you and your friend. Mio was clearly surprised. You can't just let us go. I can't? Try me. But this is not right. A ninja can't spare his enemy, especially a rogue ninja. Your purpose is to kill us. You have no right telling me what my purpose is. I already said that I fight to protect what I hold dear. Leave, but remember, if you try to hurt my friends, I will kill you. That is a promise, and I never go back on my word. The last words were spoken as Naruto's eyes eventually returned to their usual blue. It seemed as if invisible weight pulling everyone disappeared. Come, sister. Ki pulled his sibling up, feeling how their mental connections slowly started to return as the effects of Hinata's Juken strike began to wear off. All right. Wait a minute. Mio motioned her brother to wait. She looked up at Naruto with obvious curiosity. The boy wielded power beyond anything she encountered before, a power that terrified her, and she saw some scary stuff in her life. This power was beyond anything else. It was primal, an epitome of rage and anger, and for someone wielding such power to show mercy, to spare a missing ninja, it was unthinkable. I don't understand you, Uzumaki Naruto. You are a very unusual ninja. Who knows, maybe people like you will eventually shine brightly enough to pierce this darkness. If so, I am glad I met you and fought you. Time will show. Think it was right to let them go. Sasuke sighed once the twins disappeared. They are no longer dangerous. Naruto waved his teammate off. I am so tired now. Because you always take things too far, though, Sasuke remarked. Good work. Yeah, we all did great. What do you think, Hinata? I guess, but... And Naruto, you were injured and now... I don't understand. Hinata looked at Naruto questionably while partially hiding her face behind her hands. Oh, that. Right, that is hard to explain. It is personal, Hyuga. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. It should be enough that you are still breathing. Oh. I didn't mean to. No, it is fine. I actually want to thank you. Naruto smiled, but this smile was unlike his usual grin. It was deeper, it was genuine. For what? Hinata blinked in confusion. Your eyes remained the same. So thanks. I don't. I mean, we should go find others, they might need our help. Sasuke spoke, interrupting Hinata's stuttering, but the girl still looked redder than usual. I also suggest we wait. Sasuke's Sharingan came alive as he spun around. Wind style, great breakthrough. The genin felt a blast wave sail past them, and a moment a figure flew from the trees, spinning in the air. Got him! Sasuke jumped into the air, catching the figure, and others recognized Asuma when they both landed roughly. The Jounin looked battered. Now this is unexpected. Some of the genin are still alive. I have to admit that for genin these little ninjas are really impressive to fend off my companions. Asuma-sensei, who is this guy? Naruto pointed at the newcomer. The rogue ninja in front of them held a very unusual piece of gear for a shinobi. A large oval shield was covering most of the figure in front of them, but they still saw the mocking smirk. Move back. That is Azuki Zin, a rank missing ninja and the current wielder of the chakra reflector. Asuma explained. At your service. So, shall we get to know each other closer? Zin stepped forward. Set her down here. Sakura motioned for Shino to set Tenten down in a secure position she found between the roots of a tall tree. The weapon mistress was still unconscious, but that was for the best. Her injuries seemed severe. Shino looked over the young Chunin. Her mangled arm, despite looking horrible, wasn't the reason for his current concern. Instead, he leaned closer, noticing how Tenten's breathing became shallow. You know what is wrong? Sakura asked while digging in her pouch for whatever medical supplies she had. I can only assume that she suffered internal injuries. I am no specialist and I lack the knowledge required to provide sufficient help. Then what do we do? Maybe a medic in the feudal army camp? I am not sure we will reach them in time, especially since we are not aware of the status of our comrades. Encounter with an enemy ninja right now would be disastrous. Then what do you suggest? Sit here and watch her die? I am yet to formulate a plan. I need to think. Shino's voice betrayed notes of distress as even an Aburaim couldn't completely hide emotion when watching an injured teammate. Wait, who is, oh? Sakura jumped up with a kunai in hand, but her hand was immediately grabbed and pulled to the side. She didn't fight it through as she recognized Toro, though for some reason he was soaked while at the same time his clothes showed signs of being burned at places. You survived. Good. Ten is injured, Sakura said after he let her go. Trauma from repeated impacts with the ground, Shino specified. Toro kneeled next to the injured weapon mistress, quickly looking over her. He lifted her chin and listened to the sound of her breathing. Her lung collapsed. It doesn't allow her heart to beat regularly. I need a syringe. When the hell can we get— Wait. Here. Sakura remembered how she for some reason also picked up the empty syringes used by Ramuzo. Now she was glad she did it. Toro without a word accepted the syringe and the next moment thrust it straight into Tenten's chest. Hey, are you nuts? Sakura raised her voice, but then pulled back. She heard air escape and Tenten's breathing become deeper. She is stable. Blunt trauma can cause such effects. Toro without any ceremonies pulled up Tenten's arm. He obviously knew much about bones, but listening to the snaps from Tenten limb was a painful experience. But when Toro was done, it at least seemed to bend at natural angle. Aburaim, immobilize her hand. I made sure the bones would mend properly. Watch her. Haruno, follow me. We will see if others require our aid. Right. Sakura nodded, following the order without a second word. Shino also didn't object, though wasn't thrilled that he was the one left to watch the wounded comrade. Careful, Naruto. If this guy can oppose Asuma, he is a dangerous opponent. Perhaps on par with Zabuza. Momochi Zabuza? Don't tell me you survived an encounter with that man. He doesn't have a habit of leaving survivors. I see missing neens don't get fresh news as quickly. Zabuza is dead, Sasuke explained. But the very least he was an enemy worth remembering and respecting. Ah, I see, you are the last Uchiha. Proud of those eyes, boy. My eyes should only concern you as something that I will use against you. Naruto. Right. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A squad of Naruto's clones charged, throwing kunai at Zin, but the rogue ninja merely raised his shield, easily avoiding the attack. Fire style, Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke flanked Zin and created a large fireball. No, wait! Asuma raised his hand, trying to stop the two genin. Hey, easy. Zin raised his shield and it seemed to absorb Sasuke Jutsu, until Zin spun around. Just then the shield seemed to release the fireball, this time at Naruto's clones, obliterating the whole group. What the hell? Naruto cursed after jumping away and putting out his burning sleeve. That shield is called the Chakra Reflector, also called the Ninja's Mirror. It has an ability to reflect any ninjutsu, and even jinjutsu. It even absorbed the wind element chakra from my trenched knives, and then I almost lost my head to the razor-sharp edge of that shield. Avoid using ninjutsu against this foe. You seem to know of my favorite toy, Sarutobi Asuma. Zin smiled. It serves my quite well. That means my Chidori won't help either. Sasuke frowned. If chakra-based attacks are useless, then Jukin is out of the question. Hinata looked at her hands and then at their foe. But shadow clones can still pummel that guy into the ground. Unfortunately, I have no time dealing with you brats. I don't fight such nuisances. I have someone, or rather something, to occupy you with. My other toy. Zin pulled out a scroll and unrolled it on the ground, revealing a large complex storage seal that was immediately activated. In a puff of smoke, a huge figure appeared that seemed to be made of metal. It resembled an enormous muscle-covered man, towering at an impressive 3 meters. Zin placed his hand against the back of the huge figure and chakra began to run across the metal body until the eyes started to glow with unearthly blue glow. Wipe out those brats. Hope you will enjoy my metal juggernaut. Zin smirked and jumped towards Asuma, whose trench knife smashed against the surface of the metal shield. I have a really bad feeling about that thing. Naruto gulped, feeling the ground shake when the metal figure made a step forward. Despite its enormous weight, it moved around easily. Get back! Sasuke's sharing was the only thing that allowed the young Uchiha to avoid the metal fist that nearly crushed him. Sasuke flipped over a kick and pushed away from the metal limb, sailing over to his teammates. Shadow Clone Jutsu! Naruto's clones rushed into battle, several getting wiped out almost instantly. Hyuga, that thing runs on chakra. Try to see if there is a way for us to take it out. It has to have a weak spot, Sasuke said. Hinata activated her Byakugan while moving back. Against the metal creature, her Jukin would be useless, but perhaps her Byakugan would help. She indeed saw a substantial amount of chakra in the center of the creature's chest, protected by layers upon layers of metal. If only they would be able to take it out, then perhaps the thing would stop moving. There is a mass of chakra in its chest. We should try taking it out. That is easier said than done. Naruto scowled. Sasuke, care to show what we can do? Fine, a good time as any. Hinata and all watched as the two genin in front of her activated their most powerful techniques, getting ready to face off against their new, emotionless, and thus merciless foe. Chidori! Sasuke held the wrist of his own right hand, feeling the power of the jutsu and listening to the thousands birds chirping. He glanced to the side and saw Naruto holding the sphere of swirling chakra. Rasengan! Chapter 49. The ground shook every time the metal juggernaut took a step forward. The massive moving mountain of metal scared not only by its size, but also by its lack of anything human. There was no hesitation, no emotion, there would be no mercy. Such an opponent knew no fear, no fatigue, it couldn't get hungry nor did it require water. It was cold and empty, and that void threatened to swallow those opposing it. The two genin prepared to unleash their most powerful techniques against the metal monstrosity, but it showed no sign of even noticing that. Instead, the metal beast moved forward with a clear intention of crushing the ninjas with its massive fists. You go in from the left, I'll go from the right. Sasuke offered, figuring that such an attack would be most effective as one couldn't fend off an attack from two sides. Move! Naruto leaped to the side when a metal fist sank into the ground at the spot where he was standing a moment ago. The metal juggernaut, despite weighing several tons, was fast, and its mass alone made any strike lethal. Sasuke went while maintaining the Chidori and frowned as the metal limbs sailed over his head. The creature of metal swung its massive hand once more, but this time Sasuke had an opening. Without waiting any longer, Sasuke smashed his Chidori into the creature's gut, avoiding the strike. His head sliced through layers until it got stuck. The worst part was that the metal monster didn't even seem to notice the damage, and moved its hand together trying to crush Sasuke between the massive palms. Rasengan! The metal creature stumbled forward when the ball of blue chakra was smashed into its back. The chakra began drilling into the metal until Naruto finally lost control and allowed the sphere to explode in a violent torrent of chakra. The blow gave Sasuke an opportunity to finally pull his arm out and jump away as the metal creature fell down to one knee. Ag! Sasuke clutched his hand that was now covered in deep cuts from the metal edges. In some parts the skin seemed to be almost torn off and now blood dripped on the ground. It was either this or getting crushed. I am fine, Sasuke bit his lip from pain when Hinata without a word began applying her salve to the most serious of wounds. It wasn't going to provide any substantial healing, but at least would help stop the bleeding and prevent infection. It also somewhat numbed the pain. All that and the thing doesn't even care. Naruto landed next to his teammates, watching as the juggernaut once more raised to his feet. That chakra source is still intact, Hinata said, not looking up from Sasuke's injured arm. Then how do you suggest we get rid of it? Even our most powerful techniques lack the force to penetrate that deep. Sasuke scowled. We'd better think of something quick. Naruto created several clones trying to buy some time, but the metal monster smashed its fist into the ground, creating a shockwave that took out the clones and blew the genin off their feet. Oh shit! Naruto cursed when their unusual foe ripped a tree out of the ground and threw it at the genin like some crude, but enormous missile. The trunk exploded to pieces from impact with the ground and a piece smashed into Naruto's chest, making the genin cough out blood. Can't lift it. Naruto struggled to pull the piece of the tree trunk off of himself, but was barely able to move it, and his position didn't allow him to get a good grip. One of his hands was also trapped, so he couldn't even make a seal to create shadow clones. Of all the situations you could have gotten yourself into, you got trapped under a tree. Sasuke appeared over Naruto trying to lift the stubborn piece of wood, but it wasn't enough. The metal juggernaut seemed to notice that one of his targets was trapped and made its way towards Naruto. Hurry up, team! I am trying, but… Hyuga? Sasuke watched as Hinata stood before the metal monster, and by the looks of it she wasn't about to move away. Instead she remained in place, her hands spread as if she was trying to embrace the metal creature. Hinata, no! Get away from there! Naruto desperately pushed the tree with his only free hand and then punched it in desperation. You protected me, in a way you always did. At least this once, allow me to return the favor. I don't need people sacrificing themselves for me. I am not. I am showing my strength. Watch me. Hinata's Byakugan came to life and the girl began moving her hands in a complex manner, a trail of chakra following her every gesture. Soon her whole figure was covered by a shield of swirling chakra, but it wasn't like Neji's Kaiten. It was a completely different technique one never used before. Hinata was replicating the outside layer of the Rasengan, using it as a shield instead of a way to contain the chakra. That allowed her to concentrate all the chakra she had into this one layer that perhaps had no power attack, but that was now a barrier that protected the girl whose form was reduced to a glimmering silhouette in the middle of her technique. The metal creature raised its fist and smashed it against the barrier of swirling chakra, but the blow bounced off and the creature stumbled back trying to regain balance. Whoa! Naruto muttered, but the metal monster didn't share its amazement as it brought up both hands together, slamming a hammer blow against Hinata's technique. The girl inside yelped, feeling the strain, but didn't move an inch, her hands maintaining the swirling barrier. The metal juggernaut repeated the blow, and Hinata nearly collapsed, her barrier barely withstanding the amazing force that could have leveled a building. Soon enough the third blow came and Hinata fell to her knees. Her technique was depleted as was her chakra. It was all she could do and she really hoped it was enough. As the creature raised its hands for the finishing blow, she looked back, noticing that Naruto was still trapped. So it was still not enough. The girl lowered her head, blood dripping from her nose from the stress. What? Sasuke noticed something pink dash past him and he immediately recognized his teammate that leaped over the tree that was pinning Naruto down. Sakura tossed 2 kunai at the metal creature. At first it seemed stupid, what could 2 little metal knives do against a moving mass of metal? But then Sasuke's Sharingan saw the metal wire connecting the 2 weapons, and that wire was covered with explosive tags. The 2 kunai sailed past the creature's raised hands that were still locked together for a final blow. A moment later the wire was wrapped around the massive metal wrists, and Sakura formed a seal required for detonation. The blast covered the creature and Sakura took the moment to scoop up Hinata and jump away. At least the Hyuga bought you 2 some time. Something white was rammed into the space between the tree and the ground, and the genin recognized Toro's bone spear that its wielder was now using as a lever to raise the tree, allowing Sasuke to pull Naruto out. So, I did it. I held out. Hinata smiled while trying to regain her breathing. Sure, that was an awesome technique. Sakura settled the young Hyuga down. That was amazing. The metal thing was barely able to get through it. It was impressive. Sasuke agreed with a sigh, but he could admit what was true. If you are done wasting time, we still have a job to do. Toro rested his spear on his shoulder, as his bow was clearly useless against a foe made of metal. His spear wouldn't be of much use also, but it did at least provide him additional options in close quarters. TSK, still moving. Sasuke agreed when the smoke from the explosion cleared, but Sakura's attack the very least did some damage. The creature was now missing both hands from wrist down, and the remains of its palms were now on the ground as useless piles of metal. What was your plan before we arrived? Toro asked. Hinata saw that it is powered by a source of chakra in its chest, but we couldn't blast our way through to dispose of it, Naruto said while glaring at the metal juggernaut. That tactic will get us nowhere. That source of energy is clearly the best protected part of that creature. But it seems its joints are the weakest link. See, Sakura's attack did enough damage to blow his wrists apart. Then what do we do? Sasuke asked. Before we aim to take it out, we have to make it vulnerable, weaken it. Right, remember what Toro said about explosions. Place a tag at the correct spot, and it can bring down a fortress. Sakura easily understood what Toro had in mind. I bet his legs are under a great amount of stress from moving all that bulk. We have to make it lose mobility. That thing will be far less dangerous if it can't move around. Yes. I will distract it and create an opening for you too. Uchiha Uzumaki, once you have the chance, attack. I'll stay with Hinata for now. Sakura agreed. Toro charged at his enormous foe without another word and quickly rolled to the side when the metal monster tried stomping on him. Even lacking its fists, the massive metal arms were still dangerous as the metal creature kept swinging them, trying to hit an elusive target that kept dodging without actually attacking. Left, right, jump, roll. Sasuke muttered while watching Toro move through his Sharingan. His eyes were picking up every detail, every aspect of Toro's fast and precise style of fighting. The spear Toro was holding so far found no use until the archer suddenly used it as a pole to jump over the 2 massive hands, launching himself towards the creature's ugly head that resembled the crude face of a bearded man. He ended right on its face, the 2 glowing blue eyes looking at him without any kind of emotion. Metal met metal when the creature actually nailed itself in the jaw, trying to get Toro off its face, but even through the ninja kicked away from the metal surface avoiding the blow, the metal juggernaut remained partially blinded, his eyes covered by 2 identical explosive tags that were already releasing smoke, detonating a moment later. The blast caught Toro in the back and the archer sailed through the air, falling face down behind the metal creature. Now! Sasuke saw how the metal monster turned away from them. Its crude face showed clear damage, but one of the eyes somehow survived, too it wasn't blinded. Chidori! 1,000 birds! Sasuke's hand sliced right through the creature's knee, but that was only the first part. Rasengan! The ball of chakra was rammed into the other knee until the metal finally gave in, exploding into a rain of metal shards as Naruto's hand finally went through. The two genins slid on the ground, ending up next to the prone Toro while glaring at the metal creature that seemed unable to keep balance. Its badly damaged legs seemed incapable of withstanding the enormous weight of the rest of the metal body and eventually gave in, the creature falling down on its back with a force that knocked everyone around off their feet. I guess it is true. Naruto coughed from the dust while sitting up. What is true? Sasuke dusted himself. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Tisk dobe. Sasuke shook his head with a smirk, being slightly amused by the joke. Oh come, it was funny, admit it. It wasn't awful. Who made you a critic? Enough. Toro got up and then rubbed his head, feeling dizzy. Hey, nicely done. That metal thing looked like an idiot trying to kill a fly with a club. Naruto grinned, but then looked curiously at Toro. You alright? Instead of answering, Toro reached back and looked at his hand that was covered with blood. The blast, he was hit by shrapnel. Sasuke rushed up to Toro, who used the Uchiha as support. I can't see how bad it is. Toro spoke calmly, which was quite a feat in his situation, but taking into consideration his level of pain tolerance, that wasn't that much of an achievement. He glanced at the metal monstrosity they brought down, but it seemed unable to move, though the only remaining eye still glowed. 3 deep founds and only on your back. The metal shards are still inside, Sasuke replied. Someone will have to pull them out eventually, but until then I can't help you. Naruto and Sasuke helped Toro get over to where Sakura and Sakura were and helped the archer lie face down. Hyuga, activate your bloodline and look if the metal shards have hit any of the vital organs, Toro instructed. Yes, of course. Hinata somewhat recovered in the brief time and activated her bloodline. They are deep, but no organs were hit. Major arteries are fine too, but you are still bleeding badly. Haruno, cover the wounds. Others, do you know who Sarutobi-san is fighting? Some guy with a shield that can reflect ninjutsu and genjutsu, or basically any chakra-based attack, Sasuke reported. Then take the Hyuga and go help the Jounin. Uzumaki, stick with your clones. Uchiha, use your sword. Try to support Sarutobi-san. If anything, try to outlast that rogue ninja. Also take the Hyuga with you. But Hinata is tired after performing her jutsu. I can fight. Hinata looked up. No, Uzumaki is right, you are too drained for active combat, and your attacks are based on chakra. But your eyes can see chakra. Stay hidden and try to figure out a way to counter that shield. Yes, I understand. Guys, I left most of my medical supplies with Shino and Tenten, Sakura remembered. I can spare some. Hinata reached into her pouch, pulling out a couple of rolls of bandages and a fresh jar of her salve. You want help with that, Sasuke? Sakura noticed that her crush was trying to bandage up his own injured hand, but it proved a difficult task. You take care of someone who needs it, Sasuke replied, making Sakura turn back to Toro, who simply observed the scene with a neutral expression. Help out, Dobe, you are the only one doing nothing. You know there is a word for this. Heard of it? People usually say please. Naruto ranted while covering Sasuke's arm in a layer of bandages. His work was a bit sloppy, but did the job fine. I am not in a mood. You are never in a mood, team. At least I don't grin for no apparent reason like some clown, Dobe. I bet you just have rotten teeth and your breath stinks. I brush my teeth every day. You are the one who stinks. I bathe regularly. Like what, once a month? No, Enough. Toro spoke harshly. Hyuga, locate Sarutobi-san and his opponent and lead these two there. After that, proceed with the plan. That is an order, so this is not up for a discussion. Alright, just don't bleed to death here. Naruto stood up. Your concern is noted, Uzumaki, now go. TSK, let's go, Dobe. Sasuke checked the bandage. Hinata seemed to stare in the distance until she deactivated her bloodline. I found them. Asuma-sensei is still fighting and has a decent amount of chakra left. I can't say more from this distance. Good enough for me. Let's kick that guy's ass. Naruto punched his palm with a determined look. To be honest, I expected a bit more from a shinobi of your reputation, Sarutobi Asuma. Sorry to disappoint you. Asuma spat out what remained of his cigarette. Simple mockery, is that all you have left? No, I just really hate you. Don't think too much of yourself. Your shield is an impressive piece of gear that allows you to counter all of my jutsu, but even without them you never managed to land a solid blow on me. Asuma once again lashed out with a strike from his trench knives, but without the wind chakra channeled through them his weapons lacked the ability to cut high-quality steel that the shield was made of. But Asuma was an excellent fighter in close quarters and the rain of his blows rarely gave his foe a chance to counter that. With some effort Asuma managed to push his opponent back, finally creating some room between them. Anything else? The rogue ninja smirked, but his smile vanished when out of nowhere 4 identical blonde ninja came sliding on the ground. U dash. Zu dash. Ma dash. Ki dash. Gah! The missing Nin was thrown into the air by these unexpected kicks, but in the air he came face to face with the Sharingan. Lion's Barrage! Sasuke used his whole body to gain moment, and even through his strike met with the metal surface of that shield, his enemy still was thrown down to the ground, landing roughly on his back. You should know one thing about us leaf ninjas. Sasuke landed next to Asuma and Naruto with the clones standing in front of them as the first line of defense. Yeah, you fight one of us, you get to fight us all. Naruto grinned. I guess the will of fire burns brightly with the newest generation of ninjas. Asuma shook his head and lit another cigarette. Chapter 50. You arrogant brats. How is it that you are here and alive? Zin got up looking annoyed at the interference. People say I am too stubborn to die. Naruto smirked. Besides, it would be stupid to die when fighting against some moving pile of scrap metal. How are others? Asuma asked, not taking his eyes off the opponent. Zin himself was a ninja that Asuma would have little trouble taking out, but that shield basically neutralized any chakra-based attack, while Zin himself had no such limitations, not to mention the ability to reflect the jutsu back at the user. Everyone is alive, thought not without injuries. Nothing life-threatening, but we shouldn't rely on any additional help. Sasuke spoke, but didn't say anything about Hinata hiding somewhere in the area. Zin was within hearing range, and it was unwise to do anything that would allow Zin to find the Hyuga. So, what is the plan? Toro suggests us stick to clones and taijutsu, but I could go for some details. Naruto looked at his comrades, especially at Asuma, who looked battered, but overall uninjured. His shield works only on attacks that directly affect the wielder. Techniques like the shadow clone are basically chakra-based constructs that create physical mass capable of attacking the enemy independently. That shield will not affect the clone techniques. Toro was right on that. Also, any technique that can be used to create an opening also will work. Alright then. Shadow Clone Jutsu! Several identical copies of the blonde ninja popped into existence and charged. Zin frowned, but for now he wasn't really concerned. The sharp edge and the large mass of his shield was enough to cleave through the clones like through butter, reducing the copies to harmless wisps of smoke. Still, for a genin to use such a chakra-consuming technique so effortlessly was an impressive feat. After all, the shadow clones were never designed to be used as an offensive jutsu. They usually served as a type of distraction or for infiltration purposes. Zin never before faced an opponent that could basically multiply himself. Luckily, the clones were relatively fragile and never scored anything more than a few glancing hits. Ballistic kick! Zin felt the strike that made contact with his shield. Asuma used a wind-based jutsu to basically propel himself forward towards the distracted missing Nin. The Jounin flipped in mid-air and rammed both feet into the metal surface of the shield. There was no visible damage, but the forced Zin back. Damn you! Zin landed on his feet, but slid back while trying to stop. His attention though soon shifted to the young Uchiha, who moved in with his blade positioned for a strike. If successful, the genin would slice the rogue ninja in two, but obviously the strike met with the solid surface of the shield. A moment later, Sasuke received a punch to the jaw that made him turn into a small cloud of smoke. Dance of the Crescent Moon! The Uchiha dropped from above the exposed back of his foe in his sight. For him it was like in slow motion, his Sharingan picking up every little detail. Unfortunately, it didn't help him when Zin suddenly placed his shield over his back, effectively blocking the strike. Thought the force of the blow did make the rogue ninja fall down to one knee. Gah! Sasuke doubled in pain when a limb shot out from the ground, smashing into the Uchiha's gut. The rock hand followed by a head and torso until Zin's exact copy sort of pulled itself out of the ground, followed by 2 more copies around. You didn't think that your blonde teammate was the only one capable of making clones, now did you? Zin smiled. With his shield over his back, his hands were now free to form seals. The rogue Nin observed how his rock clone grabbed the Uchiha by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Sasuke swung his sword, but it did little good against the foe made of solid rock. Sasuke felt his throat getting crushed, but just as he was about to pass out, the grip disappeared and Sasuke felt getting pulled away by a strong hand. Thanks. The Uchiha nodded while rubbing his throat and looking at Asuma, whose trench knives left the rock clone armless. Where is Naruto? Rasengan! One of the rock clones got a sphere of pure swirling chakra rammed into its back. The rock clones were tough, but due to their mass they were slow and clumsy and never managed to avoid Naruto's strike. The powerful jutsu ripped the rock clone to pieces, throwing numerous shards at Zin, who once more covered himself with his shield to avoid injuries. Wind style, slicing air waves! A barrage of barely visible air blades left the tips of Asuma's fingers, moving towards the last remaining rock clone. I waited for this. Zin intercepted the jutsu, placing his shield in the way, and as always the powerful ninjutsu attack was first absorbed, and then launched straight back at the ninja who created it. The rock clone basically played the role of a bait. Asuma avoided his own attack due to his experience. Sasuke escaped with only minor cuts thanks to his Sharingan that allowed him to see this usually practically invisible attack with perfect clarity. Bastard! Naruto jumped over Zin and landed on the shoulders of the last rock clone that tried to get rid of the annoying genin. Soon enough Naruto was thrown off, but not before he left an explosive note attached to the clone's head that detonated the moment Naruto landed. The explosion blasted the head and most of the clone's torso to pieces, leaving only the legs that lost color and crumpled into a pile of rocks. Rock style, jaws of the beast! Huh! Naruto felt the ground under his feet tremble. A second later something resembling crude jaws of some unknown monster appeared and encased the blonde ninja, trapping him in some sort of a rock prison. Good. One nuisance down, or at least will be when he will run out of oxygen. Zin stood up with a satisfied expression. That jutsu created a barrier powerful enough to withstand a great amount of force, and even that nasty chakra sphere the kid used would be unable to get through. Idiot got himself trapped. Sasuke cursed. I'll distract Zin, while you get Naruto out of there. By the looks of it there isn't much air in that thing. You think I'll let you help that brat? Think again. Zin raised his shield once more. Nobody is getting out of my jutsu until I myself cancel it. You can consider your little friend all but buried. My jutsu will serve as his tomb and... Ag. The rock formation holding Naruto suddenly exploded from within, getting replaced by someone quite large. Whoa, I was summoned. Neat. Naruto was standing atop a dark green toad that was the size of an elephant. Hey, you are that Naruto brat the boss keeps ranting about. Naruto, right? I am Gamashuri and I hope this isn't going to get boring. What? Zin took an involuntary step back when he saw a giant toad. Awesome. That guy with the shield, spit oil at him. Alright, here it comes. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Shit! Zin paled. The fire of course was a chakra-based technique his shield could absorb, but the oil it ignited wasn't. And right now that giant toad turned itself into an enormous flamethrower. Seconds later a burning mass of burning oil seemed to wipe away all trace of the rogue ninja. Naruto, your jutsu stinks! Sasuke yelled. Huh! What was that team? It was awesome! Naruto objected from his spot atop the toad. No, literally. Burning oil stinks. You want Toro's smoke bomb to compare? Tisk, whatever. Sasuke covered his nose, not liking the scent of burning oil that now covered the ground. It wasn't horrible and the young Uchiha could endure, but that never meant he had to like it. That is your answer to everything. It did the job, didn't it? Naruto jumped off, allowing his summon to return. Gamashuri grunted about not getting much action, but then shrugged and disappeared. Stop it, you two, we are not finished. What do you? Naruto and Sasuke were both blasted back by two identical rock pillars that shot out from the ground. Asuma managed to avoid the one that was meant for him, and with a single strike of his trench knife sliced through it. Where did that come from? Naruto rolled over, rubbing his chest. The blow nearly broke several of his ribs, and knocked all the air out of his lungs. By the looks of it Sasuke didn't fare any better. He is underground, but don't worry, he will come out soon. Asuma sliced through several more rock pillars, proving that tactic to be quite ineffective against him. With wind chakra channeled into his weapons, Asuma was capable of cutting through rock with the same ease he would cut through paper. How can you be sure? Sasuke asked while using his word as support, pulling himself up into a standing position. He himself said so. That jutsu of his doesn't allow any fresh air inside. Just watch. Soon enough Genin understood what the Jounin meant. The exact replica of the jutsu that captured Naruto before now raised from the ground. The identical stone jaws cracked and crumbled, revealing Zin. The rogue ninja was out of breath, but was otherwise unscratched. TSK, he used that jutsu as a protective shield against that attack. Exactly, but it isn't designed as a defensive jutsu. The fact that whoever is captured by it runs out of air is clear proof that it is designed for capture or elimination. Great, we are basically back where we started. Naruto frowned. His whole body was one big bruise already. Fine, I will admit that for a genin you are formidable opponents. Zin no longer looked amused. And with you around it gets hard fending off someone like Sarutobi Asuma. Very well, enough toying around. Prepare. Asuma raised his trench knives. For what? Naruto turned to the Jounin. Considering that I have no idea what will happen, prepare for everything. Your plan lacks details, Asuma-san. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. If you have a better one, please tell me, oh wise Uchiha. Hey, no need to get my family name into this. Sasuke, I think we have other things to worry about. Naruto rubbed his head. The reason was clear as pieces of earth were getting pulled out of the ground by an invisible force. The huge lumps of earth and rock were compressed into large spheres that now floated above Zin. Scatter! Asuma yelled and jumped to the side when 3 of those spheres were shot at them. The impact was so powerful that there was a large crater left every time the sphere smashed into the ground. Huh! Sasuke saw one of the spheres near him glow and barely drop down in time as it detonated, throwing rock shards in every direction. Wind style, spreading impulse. Asuma spread his arms, creating a wave of compressed air that protecting him, easily throwing back all the rock shards that were about to turn him into a batter pile of meat. But if that wasn't enough, some of the spheres began to change shape, turning into crude replicas of a man that moved quite quickly despite their crude forms. Chidori! Sasuke sliced through 2 of these new foes, but it didn't seem it would do much good. That is his style of fighting. He uses his shield to make his opponent exhaust their supply of chakra and then goes in with powerful techniques. Zin basically has most of his chakra supply intact. Asuma moved back. Then we need to stop the jutsu, Naruto decided and rolled between the legs of one of the rock creatures. His target was clear, but Zin expected as much. The spheres that were still in midair fell down helplessly, but the rock creatures now separated Naruto from his teammates. Without a doubt, it was what Zin was aiming for from the beginning. He wanted to break up his foes and take them out one by one, preferably starting from the genin. Despite the impressive scale, the jutsu used by Zin wasn't an actual attack, but a diversion. Even with all of his chakra, he couldn't keep such a powerful technique working for an extended period of time, but the advantage was that those rock creatures could stay active even without him adding more chakra. They would collapse eventually, but that would provide the missing Nin with enough time to get rid of the annoying blonde ninja. Shadow CL. Enough clones for today, brat. Zin jumped towards Naruto, forcing the blonde ninja to roll away without any time to finish his jutsu. The next moment, Naruto's face came in contact with the solid surface of the shield. The sharp edge of the shield sliced through Naruto's cheek, and now blood decorated the surface of Zin's unusual piece of gear. You are out of your league, brat. Zin's kick threw Naruto back towards the trees, while his teammates were desperately trying to get through their rock foes who proved quite durable to be taken down quickly. Zin shook his head with a smirk and jumped forward with full intention to bring the full mass of his shield upon Naruto and cleave the annoying genin in 2. There was no stopping him, and Naruto's eyes widened as he watched the rogue ninja getting closer and closer. Huh! Zin heard the boy practically roar, but there was little human about that roar. It was followed by a wave of energy that smashed against the metal shield, and before Zin even understood what happened, he was blown back like a leaf, crashing some distance away. Naruto began getting up, feeling the unpleasant sensation of having the reddish chakra course through his body. This time he used it on pure instinct, without any preparation, and as a result was left slightly disoriented. But he still registered when a smoke bomb detonated in front of him. Huh! Who? Hinata? Naruto turned around, recognizing the Hyuga, who seemed to become a little bit smaller when he looked at her with his eyes that now glowed with the red. The suffocating aura returned, and Hinata had to take a deep breath to start speaking. Your chakra. This chakra. That shielded. It didn't absorb or reflect it when you roared. I see. Naruto nodded, feeling how the cut on his cheek began to seal up. Hinata also seemed unable to look away from the picture of his flesh mending at such an amazing rate, even though not so long ago she saw him recovered from a sword rammed through his chest. Damn, the only jutsu I can willingly perform when I am like this is the shadow clone jutsu. I barely have any control over the chakra right now. Hinata noticed how Naruto failed to say that it was his chakra, but brushed the thought aside for a moment. I could try to shape chakra for you. Even through the hatred and rage that now dominated Naruto's gaze, Hinata recognized surprise when he heard his proposal. She for a second was afraid that he would dismiss her offer, but a moment later Naruto raised his hand and Hinata saw how reddish violet chakra began to gather. At the same time, Asuma and Sasuke were busy fighting, and while Asuma's trench knives when charged with wind chakra proved effective, Sasuke's sword was only getting dulled when he tried cutting these unusual foes. The only way he could effectively take them out was with a Chidori, but he would run out of chakra faster than he would get rid of them. Sasuke! I am going to clear a path, but only for a second. Go and help Naruto. Keep Zin busy until I come. Got it. Wind style, great breakthrough. The powerful wind blast knocked over a good portion of the rock creatures, but they immediately began to get up. Still, the opening was just what Sasuke needed to get past, and he immediately began looking around trying to locate his teammate when he once more felt that unmistakable feeling when Naruto used the chakra of the nine-tailed fox. The Uchiha barely had time to step aside when Zin flew at him after being blown back by that roar. You little brats! How dare you humiliate me like this? I escaped countless hunter nines. I defeated opponents that were far beyond you. I can't be brought down by some annoying blonde brat and his arrogant teammate from a clan that should have been wiped out long ago. Tisk. Sasuke's grip over the hilt of his sword became harder when he heard the rogue ninja insulting his family, but a moment later Sasuke's features relaxed. Zin never expected such a reaction from the young Uchiha. He took a careful step forward holding his shield and then saw Sasuke leap into the air, but by doing so he allowed Naruto to charge forward, passing under Sasuke when he was in mid-air. Next to him ran Hinata, her hands moving rapidly as she helped maintain the mass of reddish chakra that Naruto was holding. The feeling from that jutsu made Sasuke shiver. It wasn't something that a mere human could create, yet alone wield. Ag! Hinata finally lost all strength and fell down, rolling to the side, residual red chakra dancing around her arms, but she did enough as Naruto was just a few steps away from his target. With a roar, Naruto slammed the spinning ball of chakra against the metal shield. Sasuke slid back when the output of energy from the jutsu reached him. He saw how the shield began to vibrate as if struggling to oppose the amazing power unleashed against it. Zin now held it with both hands, but that didn't help. Impossible! The rogue ninja exclaimed when he saw how his prized possession began to crack. Pure terror found its way into Zin's heart, who looked up at the strange genin wielding such inhuman power. A terrified scream escaped Zin's mouth when for a second he saw a spectral image of some creature that surrounded the genin. It opened its mouth and released a roar just when Naruto took a final step forward. The roar mixed with the name of the jutsu as the shield finally gave in. Rasengan! Chapter 51. Despite an almost overwhelming urge to get as far away as possible, Sasuke stayed rooted to one spot, his Sharingan picking up every detail of how the reddish sphere of chakra finally broke through the shield. He saw cracks spread from the point of impact until the metal surface shattered like a plate that fell off the table. He never saw anything else as he was blinded by a bright flash of light followed by the sound of some sort of explosion. When Sasuke finally opened his eyes to look around, he saw the unmistakable form of Naruto that appeared as the smoke and dust began to clear. The young Uchiha saw how wisps of reddish chakra still swirled around the area, forcing the dust to follow, and for a moment it formed 9 long streams connecting to the person in the middle. The strange image stayed for a few moments before the dust finally settled. Naruto? Sasuke took a careful step forward. Now that he could look around, he noticed the pieces of the broken shield scattered all over the area, while Zin himself was propelled back like a bullet and came to a rough stop in the distance after digging a good trench with his body. Hey team! Worked! Like a charm. Didn't it? Naruto turned to Sasuke, revealing his blue eyes that showed an amazing amount of fatigue. You alright? Me? I am. Feeling great. Just need a nap. Naruto smirked and then fell down on his back like a log. Reckless idiot. Sasuke shook his head after checking on his teammate that by the looks of it was simply sleeping. The only visible injury was a nasty chakra burn that decorated the right palm, but Sasuke knew that for Naruto that injury wasn't such a big deal as it would disappear completely in a few days. Sasuke, you take care of these two, I'll make sure Orfo won't cause any more trouble. Asuma approached with a cigarette once more in his mouth. Zin's jutsu was now broken and the rock creatures crumpled to harmless piles of dirt. Naruto seems fine, he just overdid it. Check the girl then. Asuma nodded and walked off as Sasuke looked around, noticing Hinata on the ground face down. For a timid girl, she showed a very strong character and the ability to face off enemies that could potentially destroy her. Along with her decent amount of skill, her surprising determination made her a useful ally. Hey, you alright? Sasuke noticed that the girl was breathing heavily. He approached her and grabbed her shoulder to try and roll the girl over and barely managed to pull back in time to avoid a Juken strike to the chest. Get away. Hinata turned to him, the Byakugan coming to life, and Sasuke saw that her usual pale eyes now had a barely visible reddish tint. The usually soft features were twisted into a grimace of unmistakable anger. Even her hair looked wilder. Relax, calm yourself. Shut up. I am sick of everyone telling me what to do. Hinata tried standing up and after a moment shakily got to her feet. You are not yourself. I said shut up, Uchiha. Where is that bastard? The rogue ninja? Naruto blasted him with that Rasengan you two pulled off. Naruto? Hinata's face slowly began to lose that expression of fury as worry took its place. The reddish tint that seemed to dance in her eyes began to disappear, similar to how the fire slowly died when it was out of fuel. Is he alright? He is fine, just exhausted. Sasuke nearly released a breath of relief when Hinata's usual stutter returned. Oh, that is good to hear. I am very relieved. Hinata's gentle nature returned completely, and Sasuke wondered that her moment of aggressive behavior was due to her being so directly exposed to the chakra of the nine-tailed fox. She wasn't merely exposed even, she handled that chakra, shaped it, so that seemed like a reasonable explanation. Good. We just need to. Figures. Sasuke rubbed his face when Hinata slumped down much like Naruto did a few minutes ago. That meant that the Uchiha was left with heavy lifting as he had to get his fellow genin out of here and to a place they could safely restore their energy. That didn't look like an easy task as Sasuke himself was tired, bruised, and now with the lack of adrenaline coursing through his blood, his injured hand was killing him. Some distance away Asuma pinned Zin down against the ground with his foot. The rogue nin survived the attack, but the blast practically tore into his flesh, leaving nasty, but hardly lethal wounds all over the upper torso. So, came to finish it, Leaf Ninja? Zin bared his now blood-covered teeth. You can thank that little beast for doing this to me. Yeah, he did a pretty good job. Asuma released a cloud of smoke into the air. What are you waiting for? Just do it. Zin raised his head, exposing his neck as if inviting Asuma to cut it open, granting a quick and easy death. Nah, scum like you suffer more when they are alive, at least for some time. Coward. Say what you want, I really don't care. You can cry over your broken toy if you want. I don't need my shield to get you and those brats. I will find a way to. About that. Asuma stepped on Zin's wrist, pinning it to the ground and earning a pained yelp from the missing nin. I think you are right, you are too dangerous the way you are. No! Zin struggled to get away, but it was useless, and with one slash Asuma's trench knife removed Zin's right hand from wrist down. No hand, no seals. A crude, cruel method of neutralizing a ninja, but very effective. There, now just down, bleed out. Asuma flashed through several seals and breathed a stream of very hot air onto his weapon, heating it up until the tip was almost white. In combat that jutsu was usually useless, but when one needed to stop bleeding it worked well. Perhaps the universe finally decided to be merciful to Zin as he passed out the moment Asuma pressed the hot metal against his flesh, cauterizing the large wound. You just wait till you get to meet two of my follow-leaf shinobi. I don't know who is worse, Anko or Ibiki. Asuma hoisted Zin over his shoulder after lighting another cigarette. The Jounin seemed to be in deep thought for a moment, and then smirked. Who am I kidding? Definitely Ibiki. After Zin engaged Asuma, the feudal forces made no attempt to provide any assistance simply because they all understood that they would merely get in the way. Asuma and his team lured and fought the missing ninjas in areas away from the main camp of the feudal forces, most likely saving numerous lives this way. One could only imagine the kind of devastation a team of shinobi could do against regular soldiers who were unprepared to fight ninjas. At dawn the leaf ninjas got to the military camp, while those who could walk, some were carried. If this was what the victors looked like, nobody really wanted to see those who lost, though the picture of Zin's battered body was a clear example of how brutal the fight between shinobi could be. Since the team had no medical ninja, the medics of the feudal army were the best men to take care of the wounded. Their methods naturally were not based on any form of medical ninjutsu, but they knew their stuff. Of course, the patients usually took longer to recover, and the procedures were often painful and bloody. It was still better than leaving injuries unattended. Asuma left Sakura and Shino to keep an eye on Zin, who was tied up after getting the basic medical treatment that would ensure his survival. The Jounin himself had an unpleasant task of locating the bodies of the remaining missing nins along with the pieces of that shield, and whatever other gear that could prove useful. That left everyone else in the field hospital in the hands of the medics. Naruto and Hinata required the least treatment as apart from numerous bruises and cuts they only suffered from exhaustion. Naruto also had a nasty burn, but that would heal nicely even without his healing factor speeding up the process. Tenten woke up after getting her hand and upper torso turned into that of a mummy in order to secure the beaks. Her head was neatly and very tightly wrapped up and secured against her chest to prevent any kind of movement. That was hardly comfortable, but whatever worked. She was also forced to drink something that tasted like it was digested at least once already, but the mixture made her body go numb and reduced the painful throbbing. It also made her feel lightheaded, so she figured it was some kind of a painkiller. You could at least say something. Tenten muttered, being forced to watch how a medic slowly removed shrapnel from Toro's back. In a bloody apron, the man looked more like a butcher than a healer, missing only an axe to complete the picture. Why? I see no reason to comment on anything. Toro spoke calmly. I don't know, maybe an ouch to at least show that you are being treated. At least the Uchiha winces. Tenten nodded towards Sasuke, who was getting the last of stitches on his arm. Hinata's salve did a fine job, but some of the bigger wounds did require some more serious treatment. I don't. Sasuke protested. No, you do. Tenten shook her head. And it is fine. I can stand pain. Toro spoke, making the girl turn to him. I am used to that. We know that already, but why do you suppress such feelings? Nobody will judge you for showing some discomfort. I don't care. Toro replied, and Tenten winced when the medic with a final effort pulled out the last piece of shrapnel and began sewing the last wound close. With the pieces of metal removed, such simple wounds would heal up very quickly, as Toro could recover from stabbing wounds in a matter of moments unless inner organs were hit. The shrapnel, though, tore the flesh, and such damage would require a day or two. I don't understand that. Tenten sighed. Good. Thank the universe that you don't, and hope that you never will. Toro nodded to the medic and got off the bed once the wounds were covered by a layer of bandages. Usually at least several days in bed were prescribed after such injuries, but the medic knew better than to argue with a shinobi. He actually found that it was much easier to work with someone who didn't scream or trash on the table. The room remained silent after that until Toro picked up his gear and walked outside. The medics also picked up their instruments and left, leaving the injured ninjas to their rest. Sasuke, who hated simply sitting around doing nothing, began to sharpen his sword that took quite a beating. So, what you reckon happened to him? Tenten looked at Sasuke, who at first didn't dignify her question with a response. He then raised his eyes, and Tenten wasn't sure she was comfortable under that gaze. Just don't tell me you aren't curious. Tenten tilted her head to the side and took a more comfortable position on the bed. It is not our place to ask such things. We know enough. We know practically nothing. Then nothing is enough. When will you people learn not to poke your nose into the lives of others? There might be things there that are not for you to know. Are you speaking about Toro or about yourself? Fine. Sasuke lowered his weapon with anger showing on his face. You want to know people often don't like to talk about past? Because it hurts, it is like pouring salt over the wound, just worse. It is pain you don't know, and be grateful that he doesn't wish to share it. Nobody has to endure pain alone. Tenten objected. What if it is a type of pain even he can't stand without weeping? Tenten snapped her mouth shut as Sasuke resumed working on his blade until he looked up again. I learned that others can help pull you out of the darkness, help you move on, but they cannot shoulder your pain for you, they can't take a bit to make you feel better. Sharing it will only make it worse, because you both will suffer. Others can offer you a shoulder to lean on, to stand up, to find strength, but they can't take your place and support your burdens for you. Don't demand that from others. The weapon mistress remained silent after that, her head filled with uneasy thoughts. Damn my head! Naruto blinked, getting rid of the blurry vision. He felt like there was a mallet in his skull that was trying to break it in half. As it seemed, his healing factor didn't do much against headaches. Here, this will help. Thanks. Naruto blindly reached out, accepting a cup full of some cold salty liquid that he immediately gulped down. It didn't do much, at least at first, but the cold temperature reduced the pounding to a bearable level. It will get better in a few minutes. Good to hear. Naruto nodded, and then finally his brain recognized the voice. Oh, hey Hinata. We won, right? Yes, we did. The girl nodded. And everyone is alive and will recover eventually. Hinata looked to the side. The only other occupant of the tent was Tenten, but Naruto also saw Sasuke's stuff. Her hand was bothering her, and the medics gave HR something that they said will keep her asleep for at least several more hours. Well, as long as she will be alright. Naruto sighed and then felt Hinata's stare practically with his skin. I suppose you have questions. Naruto sighed, not knowing how he would explain Fox's chakra. It was one thing when he used it against Neji in the exams, but Hinata, she handled that chakra directly, not to mention Naruto used it for far longer, and far more intensively than when he fought Neji. You see. Darn, I don't know even when to start. When I shaped that chakra I felt anger. Rage beyond anything I felt before. It was like someone inhuman, someone terrifying found his way inside me and poured his fury into me. It gave me energy and power, and some incredible desire to fight and kill. I hated it, I feared it, and at the same time I loved it. How can you be who you are while wielding something like that? I don't know. Naruto closed his eyes that involuntarily he forced Hinata to experience his burden. He now couldn't tell her to forget about it, say that it was just some weird unexplainable feat she would not forget, not she would ever believe. He hated himself for letting her experience that. He never should have accepted her help controlling the fox's chakra. I think you do know. But can you tell me? You touched the beast and got burned. Then I have the right to know. This is no longer just about you. I lashed out at Sasuke when he tried to see if I was injured. He doesn't know, but I do. I aimed for his heart. I could have killed a fellow leaf ninja without understanding why I actually did it. Whatever it is, you already shared it with me. I only want to know what you shared. That chakra. It wasn't my chakra. I don't understand. I am a Jinchuriki. I have never heard of that. Hinata shook her head. The fourth sealed the nine-tailed fox in my gut. Naruto snapped. Happy? Naruto breathed heavily until he calmed down a bit. Sorry, I yelled. That isn't something I speak about often. The nine-tailed fox? The one that attacked the village? You know of other foxes like that? Yeah, the one and only. The fur ball of malice is sealed up inside of me. He isn't happy about that, you know. Why you? I was born that day. Turns out an infant is a perfect vessel. I didn't know until I became genin, and even then I found out due to an accident. Since I lived with the fur ball inside of me all this time, I grew up capable of handling his chakra. The fourth designed the seal, allowing some of the fox's chakra to mix with mine. Recently the pervy sage, Toad Mountain Sage Jiraiya, taught me how to draw up on that chakra to use it in combat. So since you are used to having that chakra in your body, it doesn't affect you? Oh, it does. I feel angrier and more powerful and a bit, well, wild. But you are in control? Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't use it. I feel different, but I am still me. I don't know how or why you got influenced by that chakra, but I think you just were unable to handle the thing. You are an amazing person. Huh. You know, usually people refer to me as a monster. Maybe they are right, but I don't think so. I stay by what I said during the battle with the twins. That chakra is monstrous, but your intents are noble. It is now what we use, but why and how? Even Jukin can be used to cause suffering and misery, it is just better at hiding it. Still, sorry that you had to experience that. It wasn't that bad. It was strange and scary, but not exactly bad. Hard to describe. Yeah. Hard to describe. Naruto nodded, and his stomach chose that particular moment to show its displeasure at being empty. Oh. Why you are hungry? Hinata turned a bit red. Hey, your stutter is back. Yeepee. The girl covered her face, and the sudden shift of balance made her roll off the bed. Chapter 52. It was still dark when Kiba and Neji returned with the information they gathered. Orochimaru in the meantime was busy preparing a force that would attack the rebels, aiming to end the threat they posed in one swift blow. But for the attack to have the desired effect, it had to be planned out, and that required information. Any trouble? Shikamaru asked when Kiba and Neji entered the commander's tent. He took the opportunity for a short nap and at the moment looked a bit sleepy. No, Akamaru got all the information we need. Kiba smirked. Akamaru? Orochimaru looked down at the small puppy that by the looks of it was bathing in mud. You want me to prepare an attack based on the information provided by a dog? Hey, don't talk like that about Akamaru, he is my partner. Kiba waved his fist in front of the warrior, who tilted his head. Ninja were strange folk and he still had trouble trusting them. The idea of trusting a dog sounded preposterous. Akamaru isn't just your average dog, Orochimaru-san. It was raised as a ninja partner for a shinobi. To be honest, between Akamaru and Kiba I am not sure who is smarter. Neji explained. That's right, and Akamaru isn't smarter than me. Kiba turned to Neji in outrage when he fully understood what the Hyuga had implied. I am yet to see that. And you are surprised people call you a jerk? Stop calling me that. Why, that is practically your second name. Suits you perfectly. That is an insult. Damn right it is. Bark. Everyone turned to Akamaru, who looked at Neji and Kiba accusingly. The two genin looked at each other, and both stepped back without another word. All right, I am convinced. Orochimaru nodded, looking at Akamaru. It didn't take long to provide others with the information, and now Orochimaru had to decide on the way to attack. Since their camp is so heavily guarded, there is little chance if use a stealth approach. With Ino's help we could get the passwords and perhaps infiltrate the camp, but none of the feudal forces would be able to do the same, and then we would simply be cut off. Shikamaru stated. I agree. Instead of stealth we will use speed. Orochimaru agreed. I will order my best men to attack mounted. Their initial charge should be a complete surprise, and then the infantry will be able to move in to solidify our success. The attack will come from two sides, We will cleave them in two and then wipe them out. Part of the infantry should stay back and surround the camp, prevent anyone from escaping. Good idea. Ashimaru nodded. It was chilly in the mornings this time of year, but the cold air helped stay awake. Actually, it would be hard to go to sleep before a battle. The samurai, who were seasoned warriors, had no trouble taking a few hours to rest, but the Ashigara looked visibly nervous. After all, they were not professional soldiers. Waiting was considered worse than actually fighting. It was like a torture one inflicted upon himself, so when Ashimaru appeared before his men it was a welcome sight. Mount up! Ashimaru jumped into the saddle with a group of his cavalry forming up behind him. The attack from the other side would be led by one of his officers, while the ninjas would move in with the infantry. The cavalry slowly made its way towards the rebel camp and stopped waiting for the order when they were only a small distance away, but still hidden by the trees. For our lord! Charge! The cavalry appeared from the forest like a tsunami, suddenly and without warning. The silent morning air was pierced by battle cries as the mounted samurai sliced through the unsuspecting sentries. Before they knew it, the samurai got to the tents, sometimes charging right though, their powerful mounts crushing everything that was in their way. Something isn't right, Ashimaru muttered, noticing how little opposition they faced. The rebel camp seemed quite empty with only the minimal sentries stationed around the perimeter. It was over before the infantry even got the chance to participate, but this was not the victory he expected. They left the camp. Shikamaru approached. Akamaru infiltrated this place only several hours ago, and they were here at the time. They can't be far. Right. Ashimaru got down from his mount when he saw several of his samurai leading away 2 prisoners. We just need to find out where they went. I'll go get Ino. We have no time for that. Ashimaru unsheathed his sword and approached one of the prisoners. Where are the others? Instead of answering, the mercenary spat at Ashimaru. Fine, be that way. A single strike from the sword left the mercenary without his head, and Ashimaru turned to the other prisoner. Same question and make sure I don't get the same answer. No, don't. Answer, I am in no mood for games. Ashimaru pressed his blade against the exposed neck of the frightened mercenary, who glanced at the beheaded body of his colleague. I don't know exactly. I heard something about burning down the storages. Storages? Shikamaru looked at Ashimaru. Most of my men are here. That means that the town and most of the supplies are vulnerable to attack. We must go back to Tanivo, now! Damn it all! Ashimaru urged his horse to run faster, followed by all of his cavalry. He could already see the column of smoke rising over the horizon. The small town was burning. They could only hope that they were not too late. The feudal camp by now was almost completely destroyed, and Ashimaru's cavalry rode over the few rebels that were busy robbing the dead. Without stopping, the cavalry moved on towards the town. The streets were littered with the dead, civilians, feudal soldiers and mercenaries alike. The feudal forces that were left behind were now fighting a losing battle for the town, having blocked off the major streets leading the center. The narrow streets didn't allow the rebels to use their numerical advantage, but it was clear that sooner or later they would break through, and then the storages containing the supplies needed by the main feudal army would be burned down, and the Hu campaign would be put in question. Ashimaru was not about to allow that to happen as his cavalry smashed into the ranks of the rebel forces from behind. Die, scum! Ashimaru began cutting his way through, but despite surprising the rebels by the sudden attack, his cavalry force was too few in numbers to turn the tide of battle, and one by one his samurai were pulled out of their saddles and slaughtered. Ag! A spear struck Ashimaru's mouth that reeled back and collapsed, throwing its rider out of the saddle. Kaiten! A dome of spinning chakra threw the nearest rebels back like twigs, giving Ashimaru a chance to get back to his feet. Neji began moving in his precise style, dropping the opponents one after another, and there was no use attacking him from behind. He saw everything and countered every blow. Ha! Ashimaru felt how his body moved without his consent. His hand rose and blocked a strike that came from behind. His body regained its ability to move a moment later, and when the young warrior turned around, he saw the one who nearly killed him on the ground face down, with Shikamaru and Chuji standing nearby. Thanks. Chuji, clear a path to that alley. On it! The Akimichi quickly turned himself into something resembling a huge sphere as he rolled forward, either knocking the foes to the side, or simply ramming them into the ground. He quickly made a path others could move though. Move! The ninjas ran towards the alley along with the few remaining samurai. What now? Ashimaru saw that the alley was a dead end. Kiba! Shikamaru called out. Our turn, boy. Let's show them what we can do. Fong over Fong! Kiba and Akamaru began spinning so fast that their attack more resembled a drill as they struck the sides of the nearby buildings with enough force to make the walls collapse, crushing over a dozen rebels that followed their small group and cutting off any other pursuers. To the roofs, Shikamaru ordered. For the ninjas that was an easy task, but once on the roofs Chuji was forced to once more use his clan jutsu to enlarge his arms and pull the samurai up. We should be safer up here. Neji nodded. For a moment. We have to get to the town square. Yes, it has not been taken yet. Neji stared into the distance, and then deactivated his Byakugan. Then let's us not waste time. Ashimaru nodded. The buildings were built so close to each other that even regular people would have no trouble jumping over the gaps. Of course, jumping over a street was out of the question, but that wasn't necessary. The problem was that many of the buildings were set ablaze and fire was making the structures weaker by every passing moment. There is the central square and the town hall, Ino called out. And that is where we will make our last stand. Ashimaru frowned. The feudal forces were gradually pulling back. It would not be long before the fighting would reach the town square. It more resembled a flood when the lines broke and the rebels came pouring into the town square where the remaining defenders prepared to face off their attackers. It quite quickly turned into chaos, hell on earth where people desperately tried to kill each other. The ground became a slippery mess from all the blood and dead screamed in agony, pleading for help and mercy, but there was none of that and wounded were quickly silenced by merciful blows that ended the suffering along with their lives. Shikamaru ordered his team to spread out and provide assistance to the fighting feudal soldiers. Ino found herself to be the only one left with Ashimaru, who fought like a wild animal, cutting one foe after another, showing remarkable mastery with a katana sword. The Yamanaka soon found herself out of shuriken and had one last kunai she kept to fight in close combat. She was a ninja and thus more than a match to regular mercenaries, but she was getting tired and her kicks and punches lacked the force to put the enemies down for good. I remember you! Ino raised a kunai to block a strike, but the force knocked her back. I didn't appreciate someone like you pulling out the secrets right out of my head. You have no room to talk, traitor! Ino saw how Ashimaru and Aswari engaged in a bitter duel. Blades moved in complex patterns created for only one purpose, to end the life of another. Time and again blades met, producing sparks as metal clashed with metal. I taught you how to handle a sword. Aswari smirked. And I will use that knowledge to end you, traitor. I know your tricks. Aswari blocked the strike and pulled the blade to the side, the two fighters now standing so close they could feel the breath of another on their faces. Ag! Aswari stumbled back when Ashimaru head-butted him. That is something new! Arrogant brat! Aswari ducked under a slash and Ashimaru jumped back but never avoided a strike completely, the tip of the blade slicing through his armor and leaving a long shallow cut on his chest. I waited for this to happen. You never even had the guts to do it yourself, you only lied. I played it safe, boy. I never regretted anything, well, except maybe for one thing. Aswari and Ashimaru clashed again, both trying to overpower each other, but it seemed that they both were evenly matched. I regret that I wasn't the one to feel the pleasure of ending your father's life. But then again, I now have the pleasure of killing you. You bastard! Ashimaru pushed the older man back and struck with all the strength he could muster, but the powerful, yet reckless blow was parried and Aswari with a singly moved slice through Ashimaru's shoulder, before knocking the sword out of his hand. Time to... Umph! Aswari hissed, feeling how a kunai got buried into his back, but his samurai armor saved him from a blow that would have killed him. The hand wielding the blade was simply not strong enough to pierce further. Almost forgot about you. Ino dodged a slash, but Aswari then rammed the pummel of his blade into her gut, before he picked the girl up by her throat and threw her right at Ashimaru, throwing them both down to the ground. Mind trans. No more of your ninja tricks! Aswari stomped on Ino's hand and applied pressure, forcing her to scream out in pain. I never thought that arrival of some ninjas would cause this much trouble. Oh well, that is life. Last words? When time comes, you will burn. Ashimaru cursed. Can't wait. Aswari raised his sword. Cling! Aswari saw how his strike was blocked by another blade that seemed to come out of nowhere. His eyes trailed along the unremarkable-looking blade towards the hand that was holding it, and towards the wielder of the weapon. Who are? Aswari felt how his blade was pushed up, and the next moment he was knocked back by a solid kick to the chest. Sasuke! Ino exclaimed, happily recognizing the young Uchiha, who never turned to her, or made any sign that he heard her. When will you ninjas learn? Aswari got up in charge. It seemed that his opponent wasn't even going to defend himself, but at the last moment Sasuke's hand moved, knocking the blow to the side. The next strike knocked the sword out of Aswari's grip. How is this possible? Instead of an answer, another slash came, this one slicing right through the throat of a traitorous samurai. He gurgled something with blood streaming down his chest and then fell face down. What is going on? Ashimaru began getting up, looking around. All around he could see identical-looking blonde ninjas wearing weird orange jumpsuits joining the battle against the rebels. Then to his surprise he saw a whole group of rebels actually fighting each other, with the feudal soldiers observing in confusion. In the distance he also saw a dark figure on the roof of a half-ruined building, shooting an arrow after an arrow into the mass of rebel soldiers. Oh, I see you found Ino. Asuma-sensei. Ino felt like hugging her Jounin instructor despite the fact that his ninja uniform was covered in blood. HN. Sasuke glanced at Ino with an unreadable expression. Yeah, he was great, came just in time. Ino smiled. I am out of here. Sasuke rolled his eyes and jumped into the heat of battle. Wait, what? Are you doing here? I will explain later. I saw masks of feudal infantry enter the city and join the fight. Asuma sighed. Those are my men, they finally made it. Ashimaru held his bleeding shoulder. Yeah, the rebels are starting to surrender since they are now surrounded with no way to get out of this town. Ino, stay here. Ow, this is such a drag. Shikamaru frowned. He now had a nice bump on his head, but he lacked any other injuries. Chuji had several cuts on his hands, but nothing serious. Kiba was simply tired, but someone stomped on Akamaru's tail and apparently it was a painful injury for the puppy. Neji was practically unharmed, though he felt exhausted, but apparently not as much as Naruto, who was simply sleeping on a bed. The last few days were very taxing on the blonde ninja, and even his enormous reserves of stamina and chakra required him to rest and restore them. The ninjas now occupied one of the larger rooms in one of the undamaged hotels in town. It was a miracle it even survived. So, since you guys had trouble with rogue ninjas, you figured that the same could be the case here? Ino concluded after Asuma explained the reason for their sudden appearance on the battlefield. Sure, if the enemy used rogue ninjas against us, he might have used them against you too. Sakura nodded. We left Hinata and Shino with the captured rogue ninja with Tenten in charge. She is in no shape to fight anyway. Even without rogue ninjas, this mission went downhill fast. I mean, 1 second we are preparing to assault a rebel camp and then we are stuck in Bitter Street fighting. That stinks. Kiba frowned. That is the life of a ninja, things tend to get messed up. Asuma lighted a cigarette. I'll go talk to that Ashimaru guy. We have no orders to help clean up these messes, basically our missions are complete. There is no reason to go anywhere, I am here. Ashimaru stepped into the room, no longer wearing his samurai armor. He was wearing a fresh dark green shirt that hid the freshly bandaged up wounds, but to a trained eye it was no mystery how he avoided moving his wounded shoulder. I believe we were not introduced. I am Sarutobi Asuma and these are Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura. The one by the wall is Toro and the sleeping beauty is Uzumaki Naruto. Asuma introduced himself and Team 7 only to handle formalities. Good to know. I am grateful for your assistance. Without a doubt, without ninja support this campaign most likely would have ended in a bloody failure. Instead it ended in a bloody success. Toro moved slightly to the side. They say the only thing worse than a battle won is a battle lost, so your words are true. I have no right to demand anything more from you. I will report that your actions were of the utmost importance. Doing our jobs. Asuma nodded. As do I. Once again thank you for your help and I wish you a safe journey home. Now I have to get back to my duties. The room was silent after Ashimaru left until Naruto rolled over and muttered something about ramen. Chapter 53. Tsunade was one of the best medical ninja in the world. She was also not a person you would want to pick a fight with, unless of course you had a death wish. But despite all that, she looked pretty much miserable right now after hearing out the report from the large ninja team. Both Asuma's squad and Shikamaru's squad encountered much more trouble than was expected, and it was a miracle that all of them came back in one piece, mostly. This is all so... Tsunade rubbed her forehead trying to find a right word. Troublesome? Shikamaru suggested. For once I agree. Tsunade sighed, while Hiruzen smirked while taking a puff from his pipe. Tsunade was experiencing what it was like to be Hokage, handle such matters on daily basis, resolve conflicts, send ninjas on mission and monitor practically everything that was taking place in the village. Alright. Asuma, Shikamaru, I want to see your reports later, in writing, detailed reports, and I do mean detailed, Shikamaru. Such a drag. Yes it is, but you'll do it anyway. Tsunade stated and the lazy Chunin just sighed. Shizune, take others to the hospital and provide treatment. I think I'll go talk to Kensa about that shield and then check the labs about that drug the teams recovered. Hiruzen suggested. Sure, that will at least save me some time and Kensa irritates me. Tsunade agreed. Very well, but before we leave, please remember to read through these reports, sign these documents, sort through your mail. You are enjoying this too much, Shizune. Tsunade glared at her assistant, who seemed to be putting a pile after a pile of paper on her desk. If this job actually makes you act responsible, then yes, I enjoy it. Shizune nodded and then led the ninjas out, while Hiruzen simply disappeared in a trademark puff of smoke, leaving his former student alone to face the boring, but necessary work. Let's see then. Tsunade pulled one pile of paperwork closer and looked over it. Seems soft enough. A few moments later, the important documents were reduced to a crude pillow. I said I am fine. Look, there isn't even a scar there. Naruto wasn't a fan of medical checkups, especially when he saw no need for them. The nurse didn't seem to agree though. You said you were stabbed through the chest. How is that not serious? The wound healed, I am fine. I heal fast. I already looked at him, just give him some B12 and let him go. Shizune turned to the nurse, who raised her hands in defeat. Shizune herself was busy removing Sasuke's stitches and healing the wounds with the simple medical jutsu, simply to speed up the process. She decided to handle these minor wounds, while she sent Tenten to do an X-ray. Great. I am out of here, see you later, Sasuke. Naruto waved at his teammate, who rolled his eyes, but also raised his free hand. Ramen, here I come, mumph! The moment the blonde genin left the room, he was snatched by his collar and lifted into the air. Let me guess, pervy sage? Naruto didn't struggle, but simply crossed his hands on his chest, and the next moment, he was released. What do you want? Hinata? What are you doing with the perv? Naruto noticed the shy girl standing not far from one of the Sannin. I just dropped by the Hokage's office, interrupted Tsunade's beauty sleep. Got blown through the window for that. Naruto continued with a smirk. Wrong. Jiraiya laughed. She sent me through the door this time. Anyway, she told me some interesting stuff about what happened to you on the mission, and I have an idea, but we will need the help of your little Hyuga friend. I would be glad to help, but I should go home first. Yeah, me too. Naruto agreed. Whatever, you go handle your genin business and come find me in an hour or so, Jiraiya said and jumped out of the nearby window. But he didn't say where to meet him. Hinata turned to Naruto. Knowing the perv, we will have no trouble finding him. Let's meet by the hot springs later. Alright. Ah, it is you. Had a feeling you'd drop by, you old monkey. Kensa as usually was in his workshop and was busy examining the various pieces of the now broken shield that gave Asuma and his team so much trouble. I see you are happy with a new toy. Hiruzen nodded. It would be very nice if your ninjas would be kind enough to bring stuff that is not reduced to a collection of deformed pieces of metal. What do you think I am doing here? Assembling jigsaw puzzles? Because right now that is what this shield is, a huge, heavy jigsaw puzzle. Glad you like it. So, how does it work? Like it? Ha, this thing was a masterpiece. How on earth did your ninjas manage to break it? Is that important? Hiruzen had no desire to talk about the events that occurred during the battle. Asuma was mindful enough to explain it in words that allowed those who knew about Naruto's tenet to understand what happened, while others remained in the shadows. No, not really. Knowing you ninjas, if there is a way to break something, you will find it. So, do you understand how it worked? More or less. Look, this shield wasn't just a solid piece of metal, it was a complex mechanism. The surface of the shield was covered in tiny holes, resembling chakra points of a regular shinobi. These openings siphoned the energy of a jutsu, rendering it useless, and they used the gathered chakra to replicate the technique, only sending it in the opposite direction. So it didn't exactly reflect the jutsu. Hiruzen understood. No, it replicated it. The only limit was that the chakra had to be directly accessible. Thus it could absorb and replicate a fireball technique, but against a shadow clone it was about as useful as any regular shield. Very interesting. Is there any chance of actually replicating it? The principle is not that far from the chakra armor used in the Snow Country, but to replicate this, I won't rule out that possibility, but it will take much time and work. I should also note that it will be very costly. Don't expect to mass-produce these things. The one your ninja blew to pieces must have been worth a fortune. Still, try to get as much information as possible. Who know where we might be able to apply this technology? Fine, I get it. Kensa must work. Slave driver. I am telling you to do your job. Blah blah blah, leave, I have to make this thing reveal its secrets. Tisk, enjoy then. Hiruzen shook his head before leaving the workshop. You just had to ruin my research, brat. Jiraiya sulked while walking to the training grounds with Naruto and Hinata. The girls seemed to stay as far away from the man as possible, without it being impolite. You are a perv, face the consequences of being one. Naruto snapped back. When you grow older, you'll appreciate my work. Whatever, pervy sage. Anyway, what is that training you talked about? And more importantly, why do we need Hinata for this? She is a Hyuga, and from what I understood, she is now aware of your condition. Why, yes. Naruto won't be in trouble, will he? Hinata asked. No, he is smart enough not to speak of it too often. Few people know. But I also invited you because you now have a personal interest. How come? Naruto tiled his head, looking confused. Tsunade mentioned that you lashed out against Sasuke after helping Naruto maintain the Rasengan while he was using his special ability. Asuma explained that must have been dazed and disoriented after the battle, but that wasn't the case, was it? And no. The chakra of Tailed Beast is potent, it has special properties and is not to be handled recklessly. Naruto grew up with that chakra in his body, he is accustomed to it, you are not. You weren't merely exposed to that chakra, you handled it, you actively shaped that chakra, and at the time you yourself were almost out of chakra yourself. So, what does all of that mean? Naruto now looked worried. I have a hunch. Alright, Hinata, activate your Byakugan and look at your hands. The girl obediently followed the order, but her advanced ocular jutsu revealed nothing out of the ordinary. Now hit that tree with a Jukin strike. Alright. Hinata wasn't sure what Jiraiya was trying to achieve. She practiced her strike so many times that it was like second nature, so without another work she approached a tree, slid into the basic Jukin stance, and delivered a strike. The girl seemed frozen, her hands still pressed against the bark of the tree. I don't. Felt different? Describe it. My chakra. I saw, there were wisps of reddish chakra and it was like a burning sensation. Hinata finally lowered her hand, revealing the damage her strike did. She practically blasted a piece of tree bark to tiny bits, leaving a noticeable mark on the tree. Wait, that sounds like the chakra of the fox. Naruto understood. Exactly. When your friend helped you shape the chakra for a Rasengan, she had to allow chakra to enter her chakra points in order to manipulate it. Since she had exhausted her own chakra, there was nothing stopping the chakra of the fox from directly affecting the chakra points in her hands. Of course the effect is rather minimal, but now, whenever she charges chakra through her palms and fingers, her chakra mixes with those minor amounts of fox chakra, and that alone is enough to greatly increase the potency of her chakra. You've seen the result. Are these effects permanent? Hinata looked over her hands. I am not an expert on stuff related to the tailed beasts, but from what I know there was a similar situation in the past. 2 cloud ninjas, Kinkaku and Ginkaku, were swallowed by the 9-tailed fox. They have spent some time inside of it, and actually ate his flesh, causing the fox to spit them back out. After that they had the ability to use its chakra to some extent. Hinata, I am sorry, It is alright. Hinata looked up. I need to get used to this. Hey, pervy sage, can't you, I don't know, seal up that chakra? Sure I can, but then I will compromise her ability to use Jukin. It is really not that bad. I just have to learn to control it. Right, so for now no sparring with anyone, because if you blast them like you did that tree, you will send them to the hospital. Today you will practice to see to what extent you can control your Jukin strikes. Then what do you need me for? Naruto asked. I think it is time for you to learn a bit more of your abilities as a Jinchuriki. Like what? Naruto clearly wasn't exactly comfortable with that. The fox was known for being able to use many devastating attacks. I remember that when you fought using the chakra of the fox you occasionally roared. Why yes, it wasn't like any jutsu I've seen. Hinata agreed. See, that is why we need her. She saw your chakra system when you used it. Perhaps with her help you will be able to replicate it and use it at will. Without that chakra? Doubt it. That chakra is what grants you that ability. Girl, what happened when Naruto used that roar? Did he charge chakra into his lungs like for an air jutsu? And no. He charged it to his vocal cords. That is strange. Jiraiya admitted. Vocal cords? Naruto scratched his head. Yeah, those things in your throat that help you speak, dummy. Jiraiya poked Naruto in the neck, forcing him to cough several times. Fine, how do I do it, perv? How should I know? We know that you have to charge chakra to your vocal cords, so try it. Fine. Naruto concentrated and then opened his mouth, but instead of a blast of energy he produced a rather ridiculous-sounding roar that ended up in him coughing again. Jiraiya went rolling on the ground laughing, and even Hinata had to cover her mouth trying to suppress her giggle. Brat, that was pathetic. Tell me about it. I have no idea how I do it when I am using the fox's chakra. That chakra is always there, it is always mixed with your own chakra, just not in such vast amounts. Try to separate it and charge only that chakra to your vocal cords. Naruto stayed silent as he concentrated for the next 10 minutes. I feel strange. Naruto's voice seemed to change slightly, it now more resembled a growl. There is a concentration of that red chakra around his throat, Hinata reported after checking with her Byakugan. That chakra is very hard to control. Jiraiya nodded. Molding it without seals should be a difficult task. Try adding the basic ram seal. Got it. Naruto did as instructed and closed his eyes, concentrating. So, anything? Damn, how long can it? Raf. Jiraiya was blow off his feet and propelled back. He wasn't a Sannin for nothing though, and despite feeling like being hit by a slab of concrete, he still collected himself and landed on his feet. Still the force pushed him back, his feet sliding on the ground until he came to a rough stop, his back slamming into another tree with enough force to shower him with twigs and leaves. Whoa, it worked! Naruto punched air. So powerful! Hinata watched with wide eyes as Jiraiya made his way back with a slight limp. Good work, brat, but let's set up a few rules. Like what? Well, nothing fancy. Let's say when you use that technique you actually AIM. That hurt, you know. Bullseye. Naruto grinned. Ungrateful brat. This is the thanks I get for helping you. Well, what did you expect standing right in front of me? Well, whatever. Try it again, and this time let's hope you will not need 15 minutes to pull it off. As for you, girl, you should go practice your Jukin. Keep in mind the level of control you now have, how long it will take you to tire out, and pay attention to your mindset. Mindset? Hinata was about to go practice when she heard that last part. That chakra affects you mentally as well. It might make you more aggressive, thus you will require not only physical skills, but also mental fortitude to keep thinking straight. I understand. Hinata nodded. She couldn't help but once again glance at Naruto. How much resolve and strength one required to live with such a burden. Did she have at least a fraction of that resolve? Jukin! Hinata began to practice without letting her self-doubt cloud her judgment. Bed now. Naruto limped into his apartment when it was already dark. His was dead tired and his throat was so sore that he didn't even want to eat or drink. He only wanted to sleep. With visible effort the blonde kicked off his sandals and threw off his orange jacket before slumping face down on his messy bed. Even his old bed seemed as soft as a cloud right now, and the exhausted genin went to sleep almost the moment his head touched the pillow. It was so nice to sleep, to relax, to feel the tired muscles finally release the tension. Sleeping was paradise. Tisk. Naruto frowned without opening his eyes, feeling how something began to drip on his forehead. His mind, even through the fog of his now half-asleep state, concluded that it must be raining outside and that he now had a leak in the roof. Unlucky, but he was too damn tired to think or care about that, so he just rolled over. It felt as he was sleeping in a puddle. If that was a leak, it was a big one to actually flood his apartment, so being left without a choice, Naruto sat up, scratching his head, wondering if he slept at all. Damn water. Sleepy. Naruto opened his eyes and shook his head, not recognizing his apartment. Oh great, this place again. Naruto stood up and went forward with water reaching up to his ankles. He now knew exactly where he was. After all, what other place looked like an enormous sewer? He didn't know how exactly he navigated in this place, but soon enough approached the enormous gates that with darkness behind them. Actually, for Naruto these gates weren't much of an obstacle considering the gaps between the bars, but they were not designed to keep him from entering, they were there to keep someone from leaving. There was a sound of someone breathing, someone huge, and then Naruto heard a giant form move, as if getting up. Moments later the sound of footsteps came as the enormous fox appeared from the darkness, as an image from a nightmare. The creature practically radiated power. It seemed impossible that a simple gate was able to keep it from leaving this place. But actually it wasn't the gate itself, it was the seal that was now represented by a large sheet of paper covering the lock of the gate. The fox approached the gates and looked down, its warm breath washing over Naruto, who sent the fox a glare, not intimidated by the presence of a tailed beast. So, we meet once again, human. Why?